And that's something I used to teach. I was the breaching instructor for my previous department and the breaching team leader for my SWAT team. So I'm really nerdy about breaching stuff. Shotgun breaching is a big thing for me. It was really cool to get them out there. So if the Genesis guys are listening to this, that was sick. Really appreciate you guys letting me shoot holes in Ty's floor.
You're listening to the Art and War podcast with your hosts, Nathan, B.R, and Paige. Nathan is a Canadian illustrator with a couple years of military experience. B.R is a British anarchist that moved to the States. And Paige is a lifelong artist based in Washington. All three are passionate shooters and community builders. Together, they run the Seaburn Art Page. Enjoy the show.
All right. Hello and welcome to the On War podcast. I'm BR.
Hello.
I'm joined by my co-host Nathan,
I said it too early.
who is drinking White Claws once again, so this is going to be a real classic episode, and we're bringing on a far back guest, episode 17, Jared from Orion Training Group.
Has it
Thanks
been that long?
Yes, sir.
Oh,
Thanks for joining us again, man.
I had no idea it was that long ago. Thank you guys for having me back on.
Oh, dude, anytime.
That was quite an experience the first time. So
yeah, we covered all sorts of fat shaming, and I'm sure it'll come up at some point in the show. But we're gonna tackle a few totally non-controversial topics again today.
Yeah.
So that'll be a lot.
Very topical. When in actuality, we just spent the weekend together and just did I don't know stuff.
Like the
that
most
sounds a
American
lot
stuff
gayer
ever.
than I meant it to, or
We
less.
did stuff.
we spent the weekend together and we did stuff.
We did stuff.
Yeah.
No further
penetrating
context.
holes.
Anyway,
I'm not going to elaborate any further. I'll let Nathan do that.
yeah. So what did you guys get up to, Nathan? Now that you're Americaning.
We deep fried peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Incredible.
Yep.
Fucking
That's
amazing.
That's the first thing you mentioned. I love it.
Yes. There was a dog. His name was Toad.
Yep.
Order
Yeah.
of importance.
Order of importance starts with a PB&J. Really, it was
Popeyes.
fucking good. Like I got so sick afterwards. I got so sick. It was worth it.
Do you know how much I pooped at the airport?
Oh, dude.
Oh my God.
Yeah. We
I
must have
have-
eaten. I think it was the Popeyes.
It was absolutely Popeyes. I told
It's
BR that
always
before the
the
podcast
Popeyes,
started. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was talking to Orion Concepts this morning after my first two meetings I had. We played a little bit of Destiny 2, and we were just chatting. And I was like, "Yeah, dude, I had Popeyes for the first time in like a year up there with Nathan." He was, "Oh, okay, so you're going to be in a 3-week-long rut where you're depressed and you shit your pants?"
Yep.
Because he's all like, he eats nothing but like good, clean food. You know, is outside in the sun. Is just an absolute like Adonis because he doesn't ever take breaks. And I'm over here like, yeah, I just traveled for 6 weeks and drove 18 hours a day and I ate Popeyes. Why can't I lean out?
It is the worst thing traveling because the excuse, it's so easy to not eat clean. You're like, well, I've been on the road. It's like, oh yeah.
Oh, dude,
Oh,
I
man.
straight up like
it is fucking hard though.
I can't carry in most of my pants anymore because I like put a couple inches on. It's like America weight.
Yep.
Just from driving so much, and then like I haven't really been good about my dad, so I'm turning into the stereotype we make fun of.
Yeah, you cross the border and you put on the weight, bro. It happens.
Yeah,
You're gonna
everything's so
have to
fucking
illustrate.
now.
You can do a character illustration of yourself with like
Of
a few
myself,
extra
just
pounds.
like crying in the shower, struggling to not
Self-shaming.
put a revolver into my mouth.
Can't carry in any of his pants anymore. -5
Oh my
defense.
Oh my god, I was at the gym last night because I have to fat shame myself and basically sadness lift, and so I walk to my gym. It's about a 10-minute walk away. Doing a deadlift, it's my first set, just warm up, and I just hear this very loud like sound of tearing, and my shorts have torn themselves in two, and I'm stuck there. Like it's 1:00 in the morning, and I have to do this like basically huddle of shame to get home.
I love it. I almost sent you the most homoerotic photo today, by the way, because you drew my legs busting out of these shorts, a year or two ago whenever we did the first podcast.
Yeah.
And my wife thought that was the funniest thing. So I bought these shorts from Banana Republic like a week or two ago. And they're a size 34, which is I wear a 32 waist, but my legs are like 28 inches big around. So I put these on and they are literally like the thread is stretching like just on the legs portion. And
Yes.
I was like, you know what, fuck it, I'm going to the store in them anyway. And I took a picture and sent it to the group chat, and everyone was like, gay, because it's like the ultimate hoochie daddy fit. And I was like, Nathan would appreciate this, but I decided I wouldn't send it. I've let you recover a little bit since we haven't seen each other in 3 days now.
Actually, I don't know. The hoochie daddy shorts are always welcome. Same with the feet.
Okay, I'll send you a dual feature here. I'm gonna text
There
you
you
that.
go. There you go. All right, so Nathan, I know you didn't just fucking eat PB&Js and Popeyes with Jared. What the fuck else did you get
There
up
was
to?
a dog also.
No. Aside from that,
His name was Toad. He was pretty cool.
God fucking damn it. All right.
We just did a 3-day small unit CQB course in the Defensive Action Center.
Yep, DAC.
I want to say, yeah.
Yep.
Super great place, super good guys, and yeah, it's a lot of fun. Very humbling.
It was a good time.
Nathan was bringing up how I touched on this in the Canadian military, but I had kind of a similar thing coming to the US after receiving the most basic British combat first aid, and years and years and years ago, before infographics and IG guides for that kind of thing were common, I did a quick crash course in combat medicine from my British knowledge, and I fucking there you go. I shared it, and so many people were like, yeah, all of this shit is out of date. And I was like, oh, fuck. And I imagine it was very similar with your kind of Canadian training in CQB. You're like, oh, fuck. A lot of this is just old.
Yeah. Oh my god. Well, everything was a couple of standard deviations away, if that makes any sense. It wasn't, weird and wacky like our favorite Israeli peekaboo instructor. Yeah, the quadruple peaks around it wasn't anything like that. It was all this doctrine, but it was not distilled for the lowest common denominator, if that makes any sense. You go into the room, it's like clear left, clear right, room clear, all that stuff just wasn't there. It was focused on nonverbal comms, actually maneuvering. I'm going to let Jared explain this better than I can because
Well, you're doing a good job of it. Essentially, the reason that it wasn't super different, but was still maybe more modernized than what Nathan might have grown up on, is because we teach based on principles. So the principles that govern what Nathan was taught are the same. Safety, security, speed, surprise, violence of action. But the methodology and the way that people are teaching that you apply those principles may have been updated since the War on Terror, or we know more data from FBI's Leoka studies. And just in general, also, the way Americans are doing things may be a little different than Canadians or Europeans.
Yeah.
Like the video of the French double peak I showed you guys. They're really teaching that, and they think that that's good. But you can watch it after taking the class and go, okay, understanding context, now I know why that might be a bad idea.
Yeah.
Which is kind of what we're looking for. We don't want to shame or trash anybody, but we also want to show if you know the principles and the fundamentals that are distilled out of them, you can self-discern what's a good technique and what's not.
Yeah. Because in my, fairly pedestrian experience, the rules are generally the same. It's all right, you have your door, you have your stack, you dig your corner, you go towards the most or least unknown, depending what exactly you're doing and what your SOPs are. But we never learned the why, and you brought the why and made it make sense.
That's big. Yeah.
You don't do this because you're going to get shot in the back of the head. You don't have too much spacing between your guys because the first person's going to be, his back's going to be exposed and unknown. All of that stuff that we never learned because our instructors probably didn't know was actually explained, and that made it so much more digestible once I understood the concepts. That being said,
a lot of times
myself into a wall.
You did get a little geeked up, as we call it, but that's okay. Yeah. It happens to everybody. One of the reasons that you'll find in commercial classes, you might get a little bit more of the why is because typically the people that are teaching there want to be there. Not always, because there are certainly commercial instructors that are just making a paycheck. But if you find somebody that really enjoys it, they're going to be passionate about making sure that you know and enjoy it. And for me, it's kind of like a pretty major dopamine release or endorphin release or whatever you want to call it when I see a student understand the why and it clicks, that aha moment. I'm like, that's the good shit. So for me, that's really big, that you actually can understand and repeat what I'm saying, not because I repeated a dogma like what you might have experienced from a military cadre. That doesn't mean that everyone who teaches in the military is just repeating bullshit. I'm not saying that for anyone who's listening, that is in the military teaching this stuff. But you may find it more commonly in a commercial setting or a private instructor that they're going to take more time to explain things because they can. A lot of times what you get in law enforcement and in the military with training is like a puppy mill type of environment where they're just trying to make sure you graduate. They really
Yeah.
don't care if you understand it or not because they don't have to.
Oh yeah, I've used this example before. I failed my first night nav badly, like badly. I ended up half a kilometer. What the fuck is a kilometer? Half a kilometer off my objective.
What the fuck's a kilometer?
Yeah, I fucked
Sorry.
up. I fucked up so bad. I should have failed, and they just booted me through because
Yep. They'll just tick the box. Like, well, he was on the course.
Yep.
Yeah,
He
I
survived.
was there. It's more of a pain in the ass to fail me than anything else.
Yep. Fucking.
Yeah, that's incredible. But it's the state of things that we live in. There's people are more worried about having warm bodies than they are about standards, and that's a problem in military and law enforcement. But it's also a problem when those people are the ones in charge of training or involved in training. And training is like its own, teaching is its own skill set. If we don't have
Yeah.
people that are good at that skill set, what are we getting?
I will say you're a very good instructor.
I appreciate that.
No worries.
Yeah, it
Like
means a lot.
completely unbiased, and it's hard to be unbiased, but objectively, you're a very good instructor.
I appreciate that. I learned from really, really good dudes. We got a lot of guys that are very talented, like Jason, who you guys probably should have on at some point. He's an absolute riot.
Okay.
Yeah, he's cool. He's a cool dude. He really taught me how to teach in a lot of ways because he's adaptable. He understands when a student doesn't understand, and he can change the way he's saying something, which is another thing that I don't often see, even from other commercial instructors. They will say, like, hey, this isn't for some people because they can't figure it out or whatever else. A lot of times when you say someone is too dumb to learn what you're saying, you don't actually have it down, because if you can't deliver it in super simple, normal words in multiple different ways, you may have not mastered the material. That's not to say that I have in every way, shape, or form, but Jason's really good at that, and I got that from him. So if you're listening to this, Jason, there's your credit, bro.
For the CQB class you've been running, the makeup of the people attending is pretty interesting to me. Have you noticed any kind of trend towards like majority civilian, majority law enforcement, majority military, or is it a pretty even split?
Last year we trained over 500 students, and 85% of them were civilian. So
Nice.
that's typical of most classes. The one that Nathan was just in, we had one cop out of 12 people.
Yeah.
That's a reflection of two things. One, most cops actually don't give that much of a shit about training outside because they do receive training at their department. That training is typically not good. That's not true of every department. But because they're getting something, they feel like they don't need anything else, especially if it costs money out of their already meager pay. And then the other side of it is that departments typically do not pay for outside training because they're already providing their own. So you don't see a lot of cops, not only because they don't think they need it, but the department will pay for it. Whereas civilians think they need it and are willing to spend their own money on it. So we have, because we're one of the very few that offers this to civilians, we do have a much higher civilian population.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So it's kind of that box ticker mentality versus the I actually need to know this in some capacity. And that's
100% correct.
Funnily enough, a really controversial topic in our little space. And it's
Very strange.
Something always up for debate. And we've definitely touched on the point that CQB probably shouldn't be your highest priority if X, Y, and Z before on the show or in the post.
Oh, yeah.
Because a lot of
I
people...
agree.
A lot of people, they might get their first AR and then jump to something sexy and not understand a lot of nuances. What would you have to say about that kind of general topic of debate and kind of the very aggressive tone a lot of people have towards really learning any CQB as a civilian?
I'll start with framing it, and I'll say that anyone typically that solicits, let me rephrase that, anyone that gives an unsolicited opinion with a lot of aggression typically has other motivations. For example, if you have someone saying you should never buy this product, you should only buy this product, and the product that you should only buy is the one that they sell, The FBI would call that a clue. So if someone says you should never do CQB, you should only do pistol shooting, and all they do is teach pistol shooting, it's probably because they want you to take their pistol class. And that's, again, it's not a bad thing that they want you to take their pistol class. And here's why. You could know everything there is to know about how to enter a room, and you could be just a badass mofo at walking into rooms. But if you can't shoot, it doesn't matter. So there's a certain level of capability with your hard skills, as the buzzword is, with being able to shoot your rifle and pistol. You have to have that. But is it on me to vet that a student can shoot a certain drill or score, or as the really, really lame people say, what's their practice score? Whatever the fuck that means. It's like bringing your golf scratch sheet with you to a class. If you have to vet people's shooting ability in order to teach them movement, you're going to whittle the population down, and you're going to gatekeep in a way that, to me, doesn't make much sense. You can learn the skills separately. It's on you to put them together. However, as Nathan can attest, in our classes, we go over marksmanship. We go over how to present the weapon efficiently to deliver those rounds accurately, all those kinds of things. But in a 3-day class, how much can you really teach? If you're also teaching CQB, how much can we really spend on marksmanship? So to try and meet that goal, we also have other programs. We have 4-day and 5-day classes where we spend a day or two on the range training just marksmanship as it relates to the movement you do later on, because there is a massive gap in some people's skill. If you're listening to this and you've not taken a pistol and a rifle class, don't come take a CQB class. It's a waste of your time. Because you might go think you're Billy Badass afterward because you shot paper targets that don't shoot back, and then you can't draw your pistol and deliver rounds at a target 5 meters away effectively. So all that to say, they go hand in hand. They aren't separate skills, but they can be learned separately and trained together whenever it makes sense. And anybody that's saying you shouldn't do one for the other has a motive outside of wanting you to get better.
This is actually something I really appreciated about your class, which was you were very clear from the beginning, like, hey, like you can learn this, like I will teach you this, but go learn. Like outside of this, go train. Like this is one skill. There are many. There's none that's false dichotomy, like, oh, well, you're doing this, you are actively, neglecting other things. It's like, no, go learn everything. You should hold yourself to a very high standard in, marksmanship. You should go and spend the time and like go take a class, go spend this time on the range yourself, go practice. And I find that a little more genuine than, and I'm not in the business, and I don't want to like get involved in like the internet mudslinging. I've seen a little bit of it, and it annoys me. Where it's like, oh well, if you don't do this, if you're putting your effort into one particular thing, then you are neglecting everything else. It's like, no, you can do everything. You can learn whatever the fuck you want. And as long as you're not one of those people who's like, yes, I know this one skill, I can neglect everything else, then who the fuck cares?
Yeah, it's the same idea as saying you should only learn English, you shouldn't learn math.
Yeah. Like
why don't you just learn both and then use them together?
Yeah.
It's a basic concept in all education. But that kind of brings me back to my point that a lot of these guys are not educators. They don't understand. They weren't good at teaching when they did it in the military, or they weren't good at teaching when they did it in law enforcement. Then they get out and think because they had achieved a certain status that they can say and do whatever they want. People will pay them for it. And I'm not even speaking about anyone specifically. It's just in general, there's this whole like, because I used to be this thing, now you have to listen to what I say. And hopefully it's something Nathan picked up on in class, but I'm really big about giving credit where it's due. If we learned,
you gave a ton of people credit, and there were a lot of little tidbits from guys that you listen to, and like guys that have gone through your classes and everything. It wasn't just like, yes, I am the expert, this is me. It was like, I picked up this good thing from a guy who came through my class that had X experience. It'll work in some situations, it won't work. Like, you're an adult, figure it out for yourself, and like put it.
Right.
It's another tool for your toolbox.
Right.
And I like that mentality. Like
it's a lot better for me to be able to tell a student, hey, there's 3 or 4 methods of threshold evaluation. Here's what I did operationally, and here's what I have learned since then. Here's the context that's experience informed behind them all. But in the U.S. with drywall, this is what you need to worry about, and here's what you might need to think of. But we still show them all the same movements. But there are guys out there, and I've had this argument with the guys that come from the unit or from DevGru or even cops from certain departments that say, well, we figured out all those lessons now. You should only be teaching them the one best way. I'm like, well, 10 years ago, what you guys were doing, you said was the one best way. Right? And now 10 years later, this is the best way. So what's going to be the best way in 10 years? It's going to be some derivation of these techniques, and it's better to give people a all-around view. And I think that's another reason we've caught some flack, because we'll teach people the center check and also the full pan. You have one, high-level unit that does one high-level unit that does the other, and they'll both say you're wrong, but they're both at the same tier 1 capability, so who's right? The answer is they both have value, and those teams are just picking which risk they want to mitigate more, and they pick differently than each other, and that doesn't mean either one has less value, which is why we show both. And then like as Nathan said, you're an adult, go train this, do it force on force, which we offer those classes too. Go do it live fire, test your capability. How accurate are you doing a center check versus a pan? How much information can you process? Tell them about that drill, Nathan, that you saw us do where we had the multiple targets with the center check. Remember the drill we did where you step center and there's multiple targets in the room?
Yeah, there's 3 targets in the middle of the room while you do a center check, and if you ignore the center, you're digging your corner and you're walking by 3 dudes.
Yep. But if you
what was it called? The Russian orgy.
That's not technically what we called it, but that is what it looked like.
It wasn't technically, but it was the you've got like three gay Russian dudes in the middle of a room. I don't know if that was you or a student, but
it was probably me, knowing how I talk at class.
Yeah, but I remembered it.
Mom, if you're listening to this, I didn't say any of those things.
Hi gang, BR here with a quick word from our newest sponsor, Got Your 6. Got Your 6 is an app for civilians to be able to instantly notify like-minded people in your community that require immediate assistance. Within seconds, you can notify everyone in your tribe of what's happening, such as a red flag law or otherwise, where it's happening, and how to get there to help. Everyone who responds to help will get GPS guidance to the location where you send the alert. The app also includes a messenger with full end-to-end encryption, as well as bulletin sections to share upcoming training classes, legislative sessions, and media. Got Your 6 also provides a list of recommended defense attorneys in all 50 states. Access to a network of fellow prepared citizens comes at just $2.99 a month. That's less than a pack of Oreos and doesn't come with the shame of being a fat The app is only available at www.gotyoursixapp.net, where there are instructions on how to install the app on both Android and iOS devices. The app is banned from the Apple and Google Play stores, which lets you know it's the real deal. To find out more, you can follow Got Your 6 on Instagram at GotYour6app, or you can find their website in the show notes below. As always, be intelligent when talking to strangers online, and don't say anything dumb. Thanks for listening, people. Now let's get back to the show.
But no, it was the 3 of the chameleon targets from T-Rex, which I really like those targets. They're really wonky looking.
Yeah, you have to think about them. I absolutely wasted one that I shouldn't have wasted.
Yeah, so there's, like, for example, BR, to put it in context, there's a guy with a balaclava on and a full suit, and he's reaching behind him, but you can't actually see.
He's built kind of like Shrek. He's all fucked up. Like he's got
like a big sweet potato in his pants. His hips are wider than his shoulders.
Yeah, he's AI generated, and he looks like a nightmare. He's like
you see him
mag dump regardless.
Right. But the teaching point is, okay, yeah, you probably get away with shooting that guy. He's bladed away. He's wearing weird clothing. But is that a reason to shoot someone? So your brain's trying to process that much information, and we've got him and another guy with an AK and one dude who looks like Sid from Toy Story mixed with Isaac from T-Rex Arms. Just a bunch of fucked up looking targets.
Yeah.
And if you center check and you see all these things, and the thing about a center check is its momentum is into the room. It's really an entry method. So your momentum is carrying you into the room, and the point is, if you needed to shoot something center, it's a quick snap, and then you hit your corner. But when presented with a lot of processing, just like with a computer, your brain slows down a little bit and you go, well, hang on, what is all that? And typically you forget to look at your corner, or you've overpenetrated into the room by the time you would have been exposed to your corner. And that is a violation of the principles of security and maybe even speed, right? I'm exposing to something that I can't actually cover with my eyes and muzzle. And also I maybe am moving too fast to actually be able to process those things. And that is why you may see Slade, formerly from GBRS, Slater Raider on IG.
Oh, I like him. He's coming on at some point. I just keep on forgetting to give him a date. It's
great guy. Great guy, and you should ask him about the center check. And he and I have discussed it at length. One of the reasons that he doesn't like it and why DevGuru stopped doing it doctrinally is because you get sucked into the room when there's too much going on in the center. And I don't know if Nathan saw it or not. He might have been in the back eating chicken wings like Gollum in the corner. But
that
there was,
tracks.
yeah, one of the students was in there, and he was talking about the center check, and I was like, yeah, y'all go do a rep. And I mixed the targets up into the Russian orgy of the three guys.
I was in the
middle of
walks when that happened.
Okay, yep. So that's where there it goes. So the dude center checks, shoots one of the targets. Two of the three were shoots. He only shoots one of them, and then crab walks laterally over to his right and didn't even check his corner. And he did
he
the
got
scan.
sucked into the target.
Yeah, he points his gun up and he was like, "All right." I'm like, "Well, you only shot one of them, and what if there'd been a target in your corner?" And he's like, well, "Let me do it again. Let me do it again." So he went back out. They started their whole rep over, and I moved one of the targets to the corner. And even knowing that he should be looking at his corner when he stepped center and the targets had been changed, he forgot to check his corner again. And so he was standing right next to a shoot target. And this is not an indictment of that student or, showing that we have like a fuck you kind of mentality when we teach people, but it's illustrating the point that if you really can't process, maybe you shouldn't move at a speed that doesn't allow you to do what you need to do. And the center check for most people, even a lot of high level dudes, can sometimes be an overload of what their brain can really do under pressure, even if it's a class where it's just the first time learning it. So for anyone listening to this is just like an absolute diehard dogmatic fan of center checking, we do teach it, but we also show the why behind if it's not done properly, it can be bad, just like we do with everything else.
That's actually something that surprisingly we were taught well. We didn't get the center check so much, like it wasn't verbalized doctrinally, but it was still you enter the room, you assess your center, and this is something that you said, like you put 2-3 shots into your target if they cross your muzzle, and then you dig your corner as fast as you can. Like you don't spend your time getting sucked into the first threat you see. You dig your corner as fast as you can, and the second guy in is going to pick up that slack and continue to shoot the threat if they have to.
And what principle would you say that's part of? Pop quiz time.
Pop quiz time?
Yeah, what principle would you say governs you have to dig your own corner?
I mean, you're covering the second person's back.
Security, right?
Yes, security.
Yeah. If you don't secure your corner, who's going to do it? Not to sound like David Goggins. Who's going to carry the boats?
There's a guy loading the PKM in the corner. He's just going to waste everyone.
Exactly. So you have to check your own corner because that's your whole job.
Yeah.
But if you're doing a center check, you're checking the center first from outside. And that's a lot for people's brains to process.
Yeah. And I found that myself too. I found a lot of bad habits. And like, I'm not the best shooter in the world. I hold myself to a fairly high standard in terms of, like running fairly standardized drills. So I know I'm not dog shit, but I know I'm not like a grandmaster. I'm okay. I've shot with BR before. I haven't shot with you, Jared.
You're pretty damn good for a Canadian. had a lot to teach me, so.
Says the British guy.
You don't give yourself enough credit. But going back to that like whole USPSA thing, like I am not one of these cool guys. I'm not like JJ Rakaza or anything. I'm like I shoot proportionate. My skill is proportionate to the amount I shoot, which is a lot. And I found myself getting overloaded a lot because I don't have these skills and like processing targets, PID, all of this stuff. I found myself doing a lot of really amateur mistakes that I shouldn't be doing because I haven't done CQB in a long fucking time. Like fiddling with my safety like it's a fidget spinner. That's bad. That's really bad. I don't do that in the flat range. I don't do that when I'm out LARPing. I did that during CQB. Why? I don't fucking know. It took me all 3 days to figure out how not to do it. I'm just glad no one noticed. You probably noticed, but
I noticed, but it's okay.
Yeah.
We have that happen though, where people that know what they're doing get put under a different kind of pressure outside their comfort zone, and they do weird stuff. And that's kind of what we're trying to do with these classes. It's never been, and it should not be, unless you have some ulterior motive. We'll only learn this and not that. I think that if you, and this is something we actually said in class, and I say every class, if you took somebody who was a GM shooter and you taught him CQB and he learned it and had time to practice it, the same amount of time that you took someone that was just in a pipeline, military or law enforcement, You put him through the same CQB school, but didn't come in with those other shooting skills. Who do you think is going to outperform the other?
Yeah.
It's going to be the guy who shoots competitively and also trains in how to move effectively.
Yeah.
It's never been about you should only do one or the other. Anybody who says, well, I shoot tactically or I do combat shooting, that's not a thing. Shooting is shooting is shooting. However, if you do not have the skill set of movement and you have to do those movements opposed, even as the best shooter in the world, there are considerations that you're not going to be aware of, like exposure, angles, processing speed, PID of targets, teamwork, safety with your muzzle, understanding sectors, priority of work. That doesn't come from competition shooting, and that is what we're teaching. We're not teaching
Yeah.
people how to shoot effectively per se.
Yeah.
There's people in the industry that would say like tactics deliver you to a shooting problem, then
Yeah.
you have to be able to shoot. Well, that's 100. I would say it's 100% true.
Yeah. I think a single example that I see clowned on a lot, and I'm not entirely immune to this. The first time he ever showed me, I kind of thought like, well, what the hell is this? And then I got up and I did it, and I'm like, oh, this makes sense. But an easy example is to like point at the first day of CQB, where you had these guys, like some of which are experienced shooters, some of which are a little newer, but everyone's hitting doors. Everyone's, like their gear's smacking off of stuff. Everyone's, hitting walls a little bit. Everyone's grabbing doorways with their gear. By day 3, it wasn't happening at all. And all you did was spend probably 2 or 3 minutes talking about, hey, it makes it easier to position your feet like this. And then no one fucking did it again, basically for the rest of the course.
Yep.
And it wasn't like an overcomplicated ballet thing. It wasn't, this is kinetic, vector, angle, fighting. And then you get in, you commence your blood sweep. And, now we're going to go home and read J.R.R. Tolkien and The Art of War by Sun Tzu. It was like...
First of all, I read all those things. But no, you're correct in that it does get clowned on to teach people footwork. Part of that is because the people that are clowning on it in the pipelines that they were in, it wasn't a training module, because by the time you got selected for that unit, you had multiple deployments, you'd been through another lower end pipeline, and you weren't working on footwork at that point, because if you didn't have it, you wouldn't have made the selection. And to be able to say like, oh, we never worked that. Yeah, okay, that's cool. I'm not training CAG guys. I'm training accountants and people that want to be a prepared rifleman. In 3 days, you think I'm not going to give somebody a repeatable take-home drill? It would probably be like someone saying, I was in CAG, we really didn't work on our pistol presentation. Well, yeah, no shit. You probably repped that all the time and had to meet certain standards, so you didn't do a training module on it. But when you teach someone how to shoot a pistol for the first time, guess what you fucking do? Hey, here's a repeatable grip you can go home and practice. You don't tell them, grip it like you've always gripped things since you were born, because that's not how it works. There are things you do in this world that are similar to how you did things since you were born, like walking. The reason that gets flamed on so much is because guys that are so upset about it didn't have to teach it or weren't taught it that way in the pipelines that they were in, because they had to go through other pipelines to get there. If you didn't know how to button hook or how to not hit the wall on your entry, you weren't going to get selected for it anyway. It's like a natural athleticism type of thing. But the folks that I'm training can kind of come from anywhere. So natural athleticism is not something we do a prereq for. And what kind of teacher would I be if I said, hey, I'm not going to teach you how to do footwork because CAG doesn't do that. Here's your 3-day class where you never stop bumping into things.
Yeah, and it was genuinely like 3 minutes. That's the whole thing. It wasn't like, this is ballet. It's like, all right, just like do this and you won't run into doors anymore. And then people didn't run into doors anymore.
The internet can come up with whatever it wants from any small smidge of information. So when people see a YouTube video that we, jokingly label Tactical Twister, and it's 15 minutes of talking about footwork, they see that as like, oh my God, these guys made a whole video just about footwork. What they don't see is these guys are trying to make something repeatable for a civilian population that does not have a frame of reference. And that's what we're doing. And when we teach it in class, it is legitimately 3 to 5 minutes. And if someone can't get it in that amount of time, they will figure it out by the 3rd day, because they want to not be the guy bumping into shit. And I will take them on lunch break, or like we've had, a water break, and one of the guys was like, hey, I need to do this again. And we worked on button hooks because he could not get the button hook. So if you have an instructor saying you should never learn it because I never had to, and he doesn't actually evaluate the needs of his audience, that is an ego-driven person, not somebody who actually wants to teach you. And that would be my word of caution to people when they're evaluating and vetting their instructors is, how does this person behave towards the people that they're talking to, towards their comment section, when they're asked simple questions like that? Are they saying that things that are basic learning modules are not necessary or a waste? Because typically that motivation is something other than students' welfare.
Yeah, and it really brings into light the kind of modern question of like how much do you actually believe in? Because we're all gun guys. That's easy. Sure,
Yeah.
great. Are you a freedom guy? Are you really about what we all talk about being an armed and polite society of prepared citizens who
Yep.
who want to square up to that idea of preparedness and being the modern day Minuteman, or do you want to keep a level of exclusivity and only these guys should know this thing? And it's stupid for a civilian to even bother trying to learn this thing. That's a critique I've seen a fair bit of CQB classes is, oh well, are you going to be doing a 1 or 2 man CQB like house clearing or whatever? Like, is that something that you get a lot with your courses as like
So
a
we
critique?
do, yes. So what we saw in the market was a gap in civilians being taught anything beyond, load and fire from the 5 yard line, self-defense bullshit.
Yeah.
Knowing how to do that when inside a building is, as we've already discussed, different than just shooting fast on the flat range. You have to know the movements, not just be able to shoot. They go hand in hand. But the problem is, people need context. People crave a scenario. But let me ask you this, BR. You're exposed to an angle in your house. Okay, you're 10 feet away from a 90-degree corner. All right, and there's
Yeah.
maybe a bad guy on the other side of it. All right, now we're going to change the scenario. You're at the mall at a food court, and the bad guy is around the corner doing the shooting, and you're 10 feet away from the corner. Is the angle any different?
Nope.
It's the exact same. So an angle is an angle is an angle. And the principles of CQB, as we've already described from the Canadian military 10 years ago, it's the same. So if the principles are the same and angles are, generally speaking, angles, a scenario only plays into justifying a need for someone.
Yeah.
When we get to utilitarian ethics, that is where I have to explain to you why I need something in order to be able to use it. Anyone who uses utilitarian ethics is self-serving. And that utilitarian ethic can really easily be broken down through logical fallacies and all that. So we don't try to even do that. And Nathan probably heard me say 100 times in class, guys, this is a micro drill. There's no scenario. Call it whatever you want. You're at the mall. You're in the apocalypse. It doesn't matter. Angles are angles are angles.
Yeah.
So
And it doesn't just apply to in buildings either. It applies to
no,
anyone.
no. And a lot of what you end up doing is just like what you would do in a SUT or a MOUT class, small unit tactics, moving outdoors. The direction that we go with our classes is manpower based. So you have manpower, mission, and environment. Environment could be commercial or residential. It could be drywall or Adobe. That does drive some tactics choices. Your mission definitely drives some tactics choices. But we're not out here teaching hostage rescue classes to civilians that have never done this in 3 days. Even in teams like the one I was on that are tasked with hostage rescue, you took 5 day or 2 week schools just on that topic. So what are we teaching people? Well, if it's not mission based and it's not necessarily environment based, we teach people based on their manpower. So we have a solo and a duo class where you learn all the same skills Nathan learned, but you learn how they change when it's just you or it's just you and a homie, which is what most people's realistic scenario is because they are antisocial, they don't have friends.
Work on it.
All right.
Talk to people.
So the follow up to that is if you do have friends or you just want to know how it differs when you have multiple people, well, the only difference there is manpower. So we have small unit, which is 3, 4, and 5 people. And then if you really want to get fancy and you want to pretend that you have that many friends, we have the full team course, and that class does attract more cops because they actually do operate on full teams, and that is like 8 to 12 man movement. And all of these classes are offered either as a 3 or a 4 day class, and they're all now offered as force on force as well. So you can jump into any of them with no experience, but what you're going to get a look at is just small variances in the end result based on if you have 1 and 2, 3 through 5, or 6+ people. And that's it.
Yeah.
It's no
I
scenario.
remember the very last day you had us all run it as larger teams. And because everyone had learned the smaller teams, the larger teams just fucking flowed. No one even really had to learn it other than, a 30-second, all right, here's what you're doing differently. And it was just like learning on a small team and moving up seemed to be more intuitive than the other way around. where I learn
Yep.
in a large team going down.
Yeah, when you do when you do solo and duo, you learn all of the jobs and you have to do all of them. So for example, we come to a four-way intersection, or what some schoolhouses call an X-shaped intersection, picture like a plus sign. You have the three options in front of you and you have to worry about rear security, and you're by yourself. That's a lot to process. If you have two people, it's a little bit less. If you have three, it's a little bit less. If you have four or five, it's great. When you have eight people, you aren't really even thinking about it. You're just flowing. So the more people you have, the less you have to think about. And as Nathan would just said, learning it in a small unit, we have found to be the best bang for the buck for most people for their learning capability. Because when you learn in 3 to 5, you can go back and say, well, if I was by myself, I must have to do all these things.
Yeah.
And then when you add on 6, 7, and 8, it's like, well, now I don't have to do those few things because those two guys are going to do it. So we have found small unit and solo duo to be our best sellers for sure, because people get the most out of them.
Yeah. And like, I do like how you were, again, going back, kind of honest about it. It's like, if you're doing solo or duo CQB, it's the worst day of your life. Like, if you're
Yep.
doing any of this, it's probably the worst day of your fucking life. And it's not like this is preparation, but it's not an absolution from danger. This is still really fucking dangerous, no matter how much you go about it. But it's about
Yeah.
increasing survivability incrementally.
Yeah, you're
It's
working
not,
margins.
yeah. Like, it's still
Yeah.
fucking you can be a team of tier 1 operators. It's still fucking dangerous. Really.
Yeah, we had cave people with rusty AKs get lucky and kill dudes that had 15 years of experience, multiple deployments, and had more training than any other person alive on the planet.
Yeah.
And they still got killed by some guy that had never learned to read and
Yeah.
shot his gun without using sights and probably without even stock placement. God forbid.
Yeah.
So
But
the point being, like, you can be the baddest mofo on the planet. All it takes is one guy to get lucky one time.
yeah. But one example, and I only thought of this after getting home. I see all this stuff like, oh, you'll never do one person CQB, two person CQB. It'll never happen. It's like, I came home that night. It's like, I live here. What the fuck am I going to do? But that's just one situation.
Mm-hmm.
There's obvious ways around it. There's not very many situations that I'd ever have to do anything. It's very unlikely. But then my mind jumped to, for example, you see these cops, and fuck these guys, but these cops, when active shooters happen, and they don't want to go in, and they're the first person on the scene. They're there for 10 minutes, just sitting on their own, kicking their ass while the sound of children screaming has been removed.
Yep.
You have these untrained, unwilling participants who don't know anything about how to take corners on their own or with one other person, and they just sit outside and they let people die. And that is a situation that, while unlikely, could reasonably happen.
Yeah, and anyone who says solo CQB is a made-up thing, like I keep saying, that's a self-serving interest when it is so clearly an obvious need. Any active shooter, any home defense, any mass casualty event where you end up separated, or like any of the guys on my cadre who have been overseas and gotten tasked with something they didn't have the resources for, and they ended up having to do solo entries, whether they were on a SEAL team or they were force recon guys. It's absolutely a thing, and it is a thing that the people who are saying it's not a thing are actually trained in, and I know that for a fact too. So why are they saying that it's not necessary?
Well, it's like there was a saying that they always told us, which is, if you're ever on your own, if like you're ever separated from your team, something has gone really wrong. And then things go really wrong all the fucking time.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
the whole reason anyone carries a gun is for that one day where everything's
Exactly.
going really fucking wrong. Like, you're not carrying a gun and using it like every month or some shit. I fucking hope not. For like the average
In
dude
Baton
carrying a
Rouge,
gun.
maybe. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you'd know more about that than me, but yeah, I mean, like, for someone to say there will never be a scenario where you have to, maybe clear your house on your own, it's like, yeah, I fucking hope not. But the single night there is, if there's, like, burglars coming into my house, I want to have some kind of unfair advantage over them aside from my gun. Like, if I know how to take a corner a little bit better, if I know how to, work through my house a little bit better than just having, I'm like, yep, I know that's where the door is, gonna point my gun at it, that's it.
Yeah,
If you know how,
it's like you don't have kids, you just have stuff. It's like, yeah, I'm going to like lock myself in a room, and I'm going to. I don't know if I'd call the cops. There's a famous quote that I really like that Jared. I know you're a bit of a metalhead. You might recognize. He who relies on the law is either a fool or a coward. Whoever cannot take care of himself without that law is both. As a wounded man may say to his assailant, if I live, I will kill you. If I die, you are forgiven. Such is the rule of honor. And I'm gay as fuck, but I fucking love that.
That's
it's
legendary.
I probably fucked that quote up, but no, I don't know if I would call it.
I think you didn't actually. But no, you're 100% correct, and it's what BR said about concealed carry is actually something that I used in a comment today because someone was asking the same thing, and I was basically like, okay, you conceal carry. Your justification is if I ever needed it, I must have it. All right, but then you're going to turn around and say, I'll never need to know how to use it inside a building where the opponent is some space away from me and has an angle. What kind of cognitive dissonance is there to say that you need to know how to use a gun and have it, but you don't need to know how to use it inside a building? That is absolutely the most asinine, base level, manipulative, trash, lack of logic thinking that I've ever heard. People are buying it up because they like drama. And I would be saying this even if I didn't teach these classes. It's not, I mean, I'm making money plenty. I mean, our classes are selling out 6 months in advance. So it's not like a save my business, come take CQB. It's like, what the fuck's wrong with you if you don't think this is necessary?
Yeah, unless you live under a bridge, like you have a structure to potentially clear. It's not gonna happen monthly. I fucking hope not. It might not ever happen in your life. But if the day comes where it's a necessity, whether it's your house or a different, end of days kind of scenario, if you don't have the tools, like I think every citizen should have some idea of how to operate a Browning 50 cal. Can the average citizen own one? No. Might there be a day where they acquire one in a really fucked scenario? Yeah. It's something that Felix talks about of Redbeard Tactical. It's like, yeah, I think citizens should have some idea on how to operate military equipment. Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I absolutely agree with that. And like the thing that he was talking about, like you go to SHOT Show, why play with the 1 in a billion ARs? Go finger fuck the belt fit. That's something you don't get to play with every day. Find out the manual of arms. Find out how it works.
Well, it's the same
side
thing.
Note, I'm really looking forward to us recording with you and Felix when he gets back from Redacted. I think that'll be a good one.
I talked to him about it yesterday. He's excited.
I'm glad. He's a good guy.
That's why
I'm looking forward to it.
Bringing people together.
Yeah,
exactly.
And there are people who try to make camps. So I don't believe that social media should be, and if you use the word like gun community, if that's even such a thing, I don't think that there should be camps in it. So people are creating these divisive lines to say like, well, if you're not a USPSA shooter, you can't teach anything, or I only take classes or listen to people who have this. Or they're the other side of it where they're like, well, you're a competition shooter. Well, I'd rather learn from a cop. That's dumb. And Felix, just because of being in the military and the circles he runs in, is more likely, or I've seen him share things from certain folks or whoever that have put themselves in these camps. But then he'll turn around and share something from Blake, who's one of our primary guys and has been very formative for our curriculum.
I really like Blake.
Yeah, Blake's awesome. Another guy you guys might want to consider having on here because he's just a wealth of knowledge.
Absolutely. He's a wealth of knowledge.
All that to say, Felix doesn't really seem to be as about the bullshit. Maybe that's because he's not American, so he's just kind of like, I'm just trying to be nice. Yeah. Well, it's not even that he's above it. He's like, I just want to be nice because I want to, I wish I was American.
I want to do like the German accent, but I'm shit at imitating him.
Yeah, I can't wait to try it while he's on here.
I remember when we recorded our episode at SHOT Show, he was in the room with me, and Anna, Victim Henry, was just sending like horrible memes for him to verbally tell me.
Victim Henry's page is really cool.
And he was just like, Anna sent this, and just turns his phone around. It's like, what does this mean? And I'm like, I can't explain it.
Oh, that's awesome.
No, like something I've seen you talk about recently is kind of very much in that divisive camp thing. It's like we have plenty of adversaries as a community and a culture, as people who believe in being able to protect your rights, from the barrel of a gun and say, fuck you, no. And for us to get into this internet man drama, it's so easy and so attractive to a lot of people who don't have anything else to offer to just actively shit on people. And I will offer the caveat, there are some people who need to be shit on who are actively harmful, with what they're pushing. And
like Detroit Dust. I'll come out and say it. Fuck that guy, trash. And it's not a troll. It's not a troll
for
account.
the longest time.
That's what I was gonna say. I thought he was a troll originally. It turns out he thinks he's legit.
Oh no.
We need people to know he's not legit. When you go after people that are legit and just have a slightly different opinion or a slightly different technique, and you say, well, I'm the only person who's any good, and you start to set up these barriers, especially when it's behind this false, and this is what really drives me insane, this false sense of, well, I'm an arbiter of truth and justice. I'm setting up a sort of a wall that if you can't climb it, if you can't come talk to me about it, get my blessing, you're not shit. That is the most ego-driven thing I have ever seen so far in this industry. And it's kind of unprecedented. It's like, who fucking made you king of shit mountain? I don't understand. So, and as you said, it's very easy for people who have nothing else to offer to put their ego in that place. So, like you said, my question to a lot of people has been, what are you doing to actually further the American citizen other than offering a pistol class?
Yeah.
What are you actually doing?
And I've said this before. It's like the more extreme someone's views are on a particular thing, usually the cleaner their brass deflector is. Did I just mix up my L's and my R's? Holy fuck. My mom
speak English. Fuck.
You make Wi-Fi, she sow.
Yeah, your eyes are that slanty, man. Damn.
Oh my god.
But no, it's very much a recurring theme where like I am aggressively making these barriers to entry, and it's like, okay, you're fighting over a bunch of people who not of their fault, but like people who are newer to this stuff, who might not have a background in this stuff, didn't get paid to train or whatever, didn't get paid to carry a gun. You're fighting over ignorant people's loyalty instead of trying to bring people together and be like, I've got this to share. Those guys great on long range. Those guys great to talk to about gear and what you can push on that. Like, there is so much we can all offer if we're not constantly in a state of what's the newest thing to shit on? What's the newest people to out?
Mm-hmm.
The newest
Which
people to
white light has 5 more Candela. Like, I don't care. Like,
and why does this happen? And the answer is, and it always has been, follow the money. So why do people say one product is better than the other overnight? And we talked about this at the class at the side at lunch. Like when the ACOGs popped up at T-Rex Arms, and all of a sudden ACOGs are better than LPVOs. They're the best thing for civilians. LPVOs are shit. Blah 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 blah. Fast forward 6 months, the dude has no more ACOGs to sell. Guess what? He doesn't talk about it anymore. It's suddenly not the best optic for civilians. It's not a moral thing. You must own an ACOG to be able to shoot 500 yards, because he was marketing them. That was it. He was trying to sell a product. So what product is trying to be sold is my question. Or are some of these people just trying to sow division because maybe they answer to some other entity or higher power? I don't know. But it seems really sus to me that people with a severely inflated platform see a benefit in dividing folks. Even people who 2 years ago had a different opinion. Hey, let's run around with night vision. Let's shoot under nods. It's a necessity. Everyone should own it. Let's have armor. Let's train on CQB. Get a radio. Do SUT. And it's suddenly scaled all the way back to, there's probably no scenario you'd ever use that in. Just shoot your pistol really fast. I have to wonder what changed. What product's being sold? What relationship has been formed? We've got to follow that money, because that's what changes people's minds. And I haven't quite figured that out yet, but I think that's the answer. There's some exchange of fund or influence that is pushing this bullshit take, which is what it is. It's a bullshit take, in my opinion.
Yeah. As far as I'm concerned, if the end goal of every single person with a platform isn't to form the finest modern Minutemen and the most capable and diverse in skill and knowledge set, as appropriate to, where you are in the country and all that kind of thing, if they're not trying to make that out of every American citizen, there is clearly other forces at work. Like, if you're not trying to absolutely max out what someone's capable of, I'm very curious what you're here for.
I agree. That doesn't mean everyone has to teach a CQB class, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
That's
there's
not what
all
we're
sorts of
saying.
skills. Like there's everything. There's long range. There's navigation. There's
Comms, first aid.
yeah, seer. Or is it
Leadership
Siri or
and
seer?
networking.
Everyone in America calls
Yeah.
it seer. Everyone in Canada calls it Siri. I might
What
be
the
wrong.
fuck? That
Yeah.
you are wrong. You are wrong.
That's wrong.
They call it Seer in Britain. What the fuck? Siri?
Yeah, no, like all my pilot friends in Canada call it Siri. So I don't know.
That's weird.
Yeah.
Well, they're wrong. They're wrong, and they should feel bad, and we should exclude them from the
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah, you're weird for that.
Fuck you,
You're
Mike.
weird for that. Yeah, that's not right. But yeah, I agree with you, BR. I think that if your ultimate goal is not to improve the American citizen, I don't want to have anything to do with you. And there are people who get really upset, like this redneck podcast that a bunch of these guys run, which is not a podcast like this one. It is a bunch of dudes on Instagram Live. I am not going on that because I see it as a way to boost their views. And I find their dubious popularity to be based, like you said, in sort of a sense of like, yeah, let's pick on people. It's it's just stupid. It's
It's
kind of like
easy.
it's the View. It's the View
Boys
for old
Club.
men. Yeah, and it reminds me of the View. It's very catty. It's just an echo chamber, and the few times they've had people on that they don't like, it's just a shit talking fest. It seeks to push someone else's reputation down. And it'd be kind of like if you were in school and someone threw their food at you at lunch, and it was like, yeah, it's okay, let's chat later, and if you don't have a talk with them, you're a pussy. It's created this weird culture of like you owe them a discussion.
Yeah, they called you out, so now you have to answer to the council and get the green to be
Right,
in the clear
right.
again. Like, nah, fuck you. I just don't take you as a serious person because you don't offer
Yeah,
anything.
I literally see through what you're doing and don't want to contribute to your popularity by my followers getting notified that I'm on your page talking, which is what it is. It's a tactic of, and if you go look at who they've actually had on, it's always people with a bigger page than them. It's a tactic to get exposure, and it's very basic. I think it's kind of a feminine behavior, and I don't understand it per se. I wouldn't do that, so I don't want to have any part of it. And it strikes me as a very childish, like just a bully tactic. It's weird. And as you said, I don't see what those folks are doing to improve the American riflemen, other than they teach a pistol class or whatever else. And again, that's okay. If I had met a lot of these dudes in different circumstances, and I've told them this in the brief conversations we had last year when they started the shit fighting, if I'd have met this person under different circumstances, I would have loved to take a class because what an amazing pedigree, what an amazing skill set. But because the absolute douchebaggery of behavior, I see the content of their character and their intent is so poor. Why would I want to associate with that person? And that kind of brings me to the next thing I wanted to say. We were talking about all these skill sets, long range and land nav and whatever. What about networking and what about leadership? What about who you are as a man and what does that bring to this culture? Because we always say shit rolls downhill. And if we don't have the best people at the helm, where are we going to end up?
100%. That is arguably somehow still our weakest skill set, and I think that's not to be super negative and say that it's a trend down and it's a race to the bottom. I think we are significantly better off than we were 2 years ago, 5 years
Oh
ago,
my
10 years
God,
ago
yeah,
as a community. Like fucking crazy better, so much more connected.
absolutely.
We have all these platforms to get together on and have this cross pollination. However, there are still people determined to have that kind of divisiveness and to shy us away from building up a network and to instead divide us off into little camps. And somehow I don't see
It's cancerous.
it is. It really is, because it's raw. And if you allow that to be kind of the expectation, like you're saying, like the people at the top, whoever the people who have a platform, however they might have got it, are then sharing that mentality of, yeah, we should just tear anyone down who thinks differently. Okay, well, there's plenty of people trying to do that to us who don't give a shit about you being an armed citizen, that would quite happily have you be a good little tax cow and be subject to the man. And like that, there's plenty of people who want that for you. And then
Yep.
we have guys who are supposedly on the same page fighting over the tiny amount of ground that we have. It's like, how about we build out the land that we have? How about we
Yeah.
take back some ground and instead of
A
expending
rising
energy
tide
on each other?
raises all ships.
Always, 100%.
Yeah. We should all be growing together, and like I try and be nice to everyone, but like try. Fuck Dakota Meyer. That guy's going back to our roots, like 2 years ago.
He tried to come in the comment section on one of our CQB videos one time, and he got absolutely ratioed to death. But yeah, I don't know what the solution is. One of the problems is that this industry is for profit. So unless you're joining a nonprofit group that's like a local networking thing, like for example the Appalachian Rangers, the ARA. Have y'all talked to any of those guys?
Yeah, we've had Mark on before, and
Okay.
yeah, there's a lot of emerging groups who are trying to like they aren't a business, you know. Although some are trying to monetize, which gets a little bit fucky because then it's like you're getting away from the original community building aspect,
Right.
and that's part of the problem with the industry is obviously you need money to make shit happen. That is the true evil of the whole thing. Is like resources are needed to make shit happen. However, you can do a lot with just willing participants, volunteerism, and community. People showing up and being like, "Yeah, I have resources to share. I've got 10 bodies. You know, people who might not have those resources, I can help equip. I can help train. I can help offer land to do this shit on." So, as long as we maintain that idea of the altruism of raising our community and keeping it community centric rather than bringing it back to that tint of business, which can really derail these things.
Yep.
There is a lot of good that can be done with those emerging communities.
Absolutely, and I think he's had a few White Claws, hasn't
Yeah,
he?
we're really getting a shot. Oh, I thought he was just spreading his legs for us.
I did not know there was a dog there. I thought you were just spreading your legs.
I was like, all right.
I didn't want to show you guys my dick. I mean, maybe later. No, just dog.
One more White Claw away.
Yeah.
Just one.
I'm
Oh
on a
my
White
goodness.
Claw after this one.
I have a Sunny D hard seltzer in the fridge that's calling my name, but
I've had no idea, Sonny. That's one thing I love about America. There's alcoholic everything.
We have
Like,
Mountain Dew now.
Dude, it's so good.
I haven't tried it. It sounds like rat poison, but I will.
It is. It's so good. So you've got to go to Taco Bell, okay? And you've got to go get one of these hard seltzers from a gas station, which is another very American thing.
I
And
love
then-
that. The fact you can just buy liquor at a gas station is something that like I'm not used to.
It's
There's
called
a couple
road
gas
soda.
stations. Yeah,
Road
there's a couple
soda.
gas stations that have been in there FFLs. I mean, you just got to go to the right ones.
That's fucking awesome. Booze cruising is how I commune with God personally. But like,
You're more American than I've ever been, sir. Oh, that's funny.
dude, this trip, like, what was it, Rob, on the last day of the CQB course, which is like, dude, you're America maxing. Like, you've been here for a
Yes.
month and you're shooting a semi-auto shotgun. You're doing like shotgun breaching in a residential neighborhood in fucking Idaho.
Yep.
I love it here.
And that
You
was
are-
so epic that the Genesis guys were able to come down.
Dude, that was.
Oh,
that
they
was
did. Yeah, they
Yeah,
started
yeah.
following the page after the CQB course. I was like, that's a sick looking shotgun, and then they suddenly pop up after you tagged, and I was like, oh, cool.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so that's like a 3-person shop. They're the guys that did the shotguns for the John Wick movie.
Fuck.
Yes.
Um,
Cody's fucking
Yeah.
awesome. We've I've done some work for them, but they're cool guys. First time I've ever met any of them.
Yeah.
No, wait.
Well,
no,
hopefully
I-
they
I
can
met
come
the
back
shop,
out.
that's a lie.
Next month when we come back out for the class, hopefully they can come up again, and Cody will be in town.
I agree. We should do some fun things.
We should.
So
We should. It'll be.
Did they bring a shotgun just for breaching?
Yeah.
Nice.
They
Yeah.
did. So they brought. So there's a couple things to consider with shotgun breaching, and we could probably do a whole podcast just on this topic. But typically you don't see semi-autos used because it's in theory less safe. When you typically run a breaching shotgun, it's a pump, and you run it with the bolt forward, for lack of a better term, for the unlearned person listening, right? The shotgun's chamber's closed, the hammer's down, and it's left on fire. So the action bar lock is open. That means you can just pump it without having to touch anything else. And now once it's been pumped, it has a live shell in it. It's already off of safe, and you can just position and shoot it. And then when you leave it shot, unracked, it's got an empty shell in the chamber. Again, hammer down, action bar unlocked, and you can just stow it. Called cruiser ready. With a semi-auto, none of that happens, right? You shoot, and there's immediately a one trigger pull away from another shot. So putting the safety on is critical. Now, because the way Genesis has designed these guns, it is literally built on just a standard AR-10 lower, which is the coolest thing ever. So all I had to do was bang, bang, defeat the breach, I've had too much scotch, defeat the bolt for the deadbolt and the throw for the knob, and then put it back on safe, roll out of the stack, and stow it. So it's just like shooting an AR, as far as the mechanics of the fire control. So it was actually really cool. I have not been a fan of like semi-auto breaching with a Benelli M4 because it doesn't have an AR safety that I can just hit with my thumb. But with this, having had so many, millions of reps manipulating an AR safety, I can just put it right back on, stow it, and I'm done. So it was a really cool experience for me. That was actually my first time ever breaching with that type of shotgun.
Oh, dude, it was
really cool. And that's something I used to teach. I was breaching instructor for my previous department and the breaching team leader for my SWAT team. So I'm really nerdy about breaching stuff. Shotgun breaching is a big thing for me. It was really cool to get them out there. So if the Genesis guys are listening to this, that was sick. Really appreciate you guys letting me shoot holes in Ty's floor.
Shotguns or breaching shotguns are a funny thing that I think me and Nathan, like Nathan's described having a friend who wanted to buy a shotgun. Was it you that told me this?
Yes, he wanted to buy a breaching shotgun despite not having anything really.
Any need ever probably. And I had the same thing recently. It was funny. Yes. It came up. So I was like, I really want to get a shotgun, just in case I need to breach something. I'm like, brother, like when the fuck?
Yeah. Like, what are you breaching?
And you know what? I'm for it. And here's why. You could keep one. You could keep one in your trunk. Well, here's what a lot of people don't understand. You guys tell me. You have a residential door. Okay.
Yes.
Picture a residential door, like an interior door that has a decently reinforced lock. You could do something simple like or it could be even your own home. They replace the screws that mount the faceplate to the frame with a simple deck screw. So you got 2.5 inches of grip, which is a lot for some people, into that frame. What do you think is the best tool to get that open?
Shotgun.
That's cheating, Nathan. Most people would say, most people go, I would just kick it.
C4.
Having seen my teammates put their leg through the door and be stuck there, what principle is that violating, Nathan?
Security.
Oh, there we go.
I'm loving the pop quiz.
Also speed and surprise and violence of action and
literally
safety.
Everything.
Yeah, putting your foot through a door, being unable to shoot through it, and being stuck in the way of the fatal funnel with no ability to do anything is pretty bad. So we don't kick things, right? Okay, cool. We don't kick things. All right, sledgehammer. Yeah, you could breach it, but the problem is the hammer breaching is about energy transfer. And if you can't transfer energy into the locking mechanism, the throw, or the faceplate, or the frame, you're not going to defeat the problem. You defeat one of those things to get the door open. So if you swing your sledgehammer and you pop the end of the knob off, but you haven't moved the door anywhere, okay, cool. Now I got to keep striking and keep striking. If you miss with a hammer, what are you going to put it straight through? It's a hollow core door, right? Yeah. So you're going to have multiple swings no matter which way you slice it with this hammer. So that's out. You're going to pry it. Okay, well, it's a wooden frame and it's a soft wooden door. So when you go to pry, you deform the space around, but the lock is left intact. So minds much greater than mine have said probably the best thing for an interior door that's locked, especially if it has any kind of reinforcement, is going to be a shotgun or an explosive strip. How many civilians are carrying interior door charges?
Unfortunately, very few. Yeah.
So 0, right?
Yes.
What can they go buy at their local store? And where can they get?
Nathan's answer is not going to be good on this one.
Let me clarify my position a little bit, because it sounds like I'm against the idea of civilians owning breaching shotguns. Fuck no. I just think that this particular friend should own plates before he owns a breaching shotgun.
No, and that was what I was gonna get to. Was
Yeah,
like,
I'm just taking my opportunity to trigger my autism about shotgun breaching.
Yes, I have an M4 for fun things.
For
I
hunting.
definitely should prioritize a lot of other things and definitely learn a bit before I use it, but I have it. I'm definitely going to have another 12 gauge soon because they're fun and they're awesome and I love them. This particular individual who I am friends with should really
you shame them quite a lot, not by name on this show. I feel so bad.
I feel bad too, but he doesn't listen, so I don't care.
Is this the same guy I heard about while we were at dinner?
Which one?
The one the one who all the crazy stuff happens to.
No. That
Okay.
like, the
I was
realm
gonna
of-
say he does not need a shotgun. Okay.
No. He barely needs. I'm pretty sure he carries a Glock 19 in a rainbow fanny pack, and he's like the one person I think should just not own a firearm.
Yeah, that dude needs a safety helmet. And he'd probably get his tubes cut. Anyway, please continue.
Oh no! Oh well, he's a Texan now. He's a real Texan.
There you go. But this friend, there's other stuff they should be investing in first.
Other things that shouldn't be investing in primarily. Like, I don't want to be that person who's like, yes, do the hard skills, do the USPSA. Like, I don't care. Just like maybe go to the range. Maybe learn the skills that are involved with actually using these things before you hurt yourself. And I think anyone should earn it, like be able to own anything. I would never, say like, oh, don't own this. I just think you should put the time into learning how to use it. And I obviously like not mandatory, not mandated, not anything. It's just like, hey, as someone that knows you, maybe learn how to use this thing without hurting yourself.
Or tomorrow's headline.
Maybe like take the $450 that you would put into like getting this Turk shit and buy a set of Heskos.
Yeah.
Well said.
It's that progression.
Time, like, people should be free to do whatever they want. So I sound a little gatekeepy here too. So I don't know.
Well, it doesn't have to be gatekeepy if it's kind of like there is a sensible, like approximate progression and skill tree that we should be pursuing. Reaper, like our good friend Reaper, now Reaper Consultation, put together like a solid little skill tree a little while back. But yeah, we love our Reaper here. But yeah,
skill trees are a good thing.
And that's something that's kind of like we touched on earlier was that jump people might get an AR. Okay, I live in a studio apartment. Time to learn CQB. It's like, whoa, buddy. Let's slow down. Let's do the rifle class. Let's do the pistol class. Let's maybe invest in some plates. Do some medical training.
And I don't even think for like a lot of hard skills you need classes. I'm going to be like one of those people that's like that. I actually kind of agree with to use an example, like Lucas Botkin taught himself how to shoot. And I truly think that with enough time, if you are the right level of autistic, like this is what I fucking did.
Anything is possible. It is a superpower.
There's no courses on how to shoot where I was. I just like put the time into asking the right people, learning the right things. And am I going to get everything out of it that I get out of like a practical shooting class? Fuck no. But I can still learn how to teach myself to a fairly high standard with time and energy and effort. It's like going to the gym. That being said, there's a lot of skills that like instruction, especially professional instruction, will just do better. Like
medical is one of those things.
Which?
Medical, you have to have medical training.
You have to have instruction for medical.
You can't just go learn on YouTube from medical stuff. But how to grip a pistol and how to not disturb the sights when you pull the trigger is not hard.
Yeah.
What distinguishes people with that is how much time do they do that skill well and or holding themselves accountable to it. Medical training, not that way. So
your reps might need a little bit more supervision.
Yeah, like when you put your tourniquet on backward, and you can't get the red tab down tight enough, so it's not. You have to tighten the windlass 8 times. You can't figure out why you can't get enough circumferential pressure to not get a distal pulse. It's like, well, maybe if you just put it on right. And we have people that come to class who are, I need a refresher. I have my TCCC and I'm a SWAT guy, and they can't put a tourniquet on correctly. I'm like, I thought this was like level 1.
Yeah.
Level 1 basic stuff, whatever.
Yeah.
people skip steps. They get overconfident when they shouldn't. We're all guilty of it at some point in our lives. But yeah, it's just knowing what you don't know. That's half the battle.
I remember my first TCCC course. This is just like unrelated. It's kind of Jared. You saw my brain turn off on the last day, like towards the end. I just started. Like,
I did.
Yeah, like everything bottomed out, and the things I had been doing right until that point, I just stopped doing right. I had the same experience in a TCCC course like 5 years ago, where like I dealing with this like bleeding guy on the ground. Instead of holstering my pistol, I just kind of balanced it on top of him. I just put it on top of the guy.
I'm here to help. Oh my god!
With all these inputs, my brain just fucking turned off. I did not do it again. I didn't do it where it counts. But yeah, it's like my brain just fucking turned off, and I did the dumbest thing I possibly could, which was apply a tourniquet to the guy while he's acting as like a coffee table for my Glock.
I love it.
Just trying to get his head away from your muzzle, like, fuck.
Yeah. Hey, open your mouth and you just put it in muzzle first.
Yeah, hold this for a second. Oh,
it's gonna hurt. Bite down on
like
this.
2 seconds. I'm like, oh wait, shit, fuck. Like,
oh man,
that is really fucking dumb.
Order operation slightly fucked, but we'll make it through.
Fucked. It's like
there's that whole portion of like
a really long thing, and I was just an idiot.
There's that whole portion of it where it's like, hey, disarm the patient if they're truly like not cognizant or whatever, so they don't wake up and grab another one. And you were like, oh, give them a second gun.
Another. If he's got 2 guns, he's twice as dangerous. Yeah, that was the first thing. You're supposed to disarm him if he's.
That's pretty spicy. It's pretty spicy memory lapse.
Spicy memory lapse. Thankfully, it didn't happen where it counted.
There you go. Well, for anyone instructing Nathan, just note that he needs ADD breaks.
Yeah. Hey, that's one thing I'm really bad at, is giving people breaks. We taught a class 2 weeks ago, and it'd been like 3.5 hours, and I was just going off, you know.
Yeah.
My hyperfixation, like CQB is my train set, right? Like I should just talk about it forever. And somebody was like, I really have to pee. And I was like, go to the fucking bathroom. What's wrong with you? And they were like, well, there hasn't been like a break. I didn't want to miss something. I was like, oh my God. Like I literally haven't given them a break and it's almost lunchtime.
Yeah.
And adults need
human needs.
Yeah, adults need to take a break. That's another, I saw on the CBRN page like what's a life hack that's underrated. And I assume it was Nathan had posted candy in your admin pouch. That is so true, man.
That reminded me of like, because I do it, but what reminded me was you do it. Like you have the gummy bears in your admin pouch, and I keep like some gummy. I don't even like gummies, but I keep gummy worms.
I fucking love sour gummy worms. That's my thing on like rocks and stuff.
Yeah, because it brings me back, especially when my blood sugar is bottoming out. And which I think it did on Sunday. Like I don't know what the fuck it was, but yeah.
Well, your brain takes up 6 times as much glucose as muscle mass, and when you're learning, it is proven with data that your brain's going to be more active, taking up more blood. You're consuming more energy, processing new material.
Yeah.
In homeschool, we called candy brain food. We didn't really eat candy unless it was like a big test or we were learning something complicated. And that stuck with me. And even like on SWAT or on my patrol kit, I would keep a little thing of candy in one of my admin pockets because
Mitch had the same thing.
You get stuck on a perimeter for 10 hours in the sun and there's no resupply. You probably need something, right? You're losing nutrients. And we had one day where we did 12 operations in the same day in December of, I think, 2019. Some kind of initiative between like state and local governments. And they had like 60 something targets, so we got like a fifth of them, and they like kind of halfway forgot we needed to eat. So they were like at like 1:30 they were like, oh, take a break and come get pizza. I was like, I'm not gonna eat like 6 slices of pizza and then go breach 6 more doors. And you know,
dude,
so
we just had Popeyes too.
Oh yeah. So you were like
a dumb amount of chicken.
Yeah. See, being from the South, I was able to absorb that grease and put it in, weaponize it. But you're a pure Snow White Canadian jeans couldn't
Oh,
deal
dude,
with
I
that.
was falling asleep. Like I'm like, I'm Angleman, I'm corner boy. Throws myself into a wall.
Yeah. So BR, have you ever heard the terminology Angleman and Corner Boy?
I have not, which is why
It sounds like
need to attend one of these.
Are
you
you
do.
familiar
It's
with Running the Rabbit?
Yeah.
Yeah. You
It's
need
the
to
same
attend
thing.
one of these.
Oh, okay.
We got to do this shit together.
You should come to the one in August.
Yeah.
That'd be a hoot. So, super long story short, you can't be both. You can either be the Angleman or the Corner Boy, which both sound like SpongeBob characters. And typically, just in classes where people are new, they have to verbalize things because they don't have a nonverbal cue yet, even though we show it to them. Their brain is like, yeah, let me say it out loud so everyone knows what I'm doing. And Nathan just goes, Angleman, Corner Boy, and then takes off running and actually runs into the wall on the far side and bounces off of it. And everyone was like,
It's the same thing I've been doing all weekend.
It was like in Wii Sports when the crowd goes, oh, like everyone was like, oh, is he okay? I'm like, keep going with the rep, At least he didn't trip.
I like the spirit. That's very on brand.
That's the
Angleman!
Leroy Jenkins! So he just took off.
Yeah, it's like, what's an analogy you use? That like that pit bull that really fucking wants to eat the toddler. I was let off my leash.
Yep.
I ran into that room ready to fucking eat some children.
I use a lot of really vulgar analogies because it will forever stick with your brain.
And it works.
Like it.
It absolutely works. But yeah, it was
and
like
people
the
love it.
Same motion I'd been repeating all weekend. And like I ate a little bit of Popeyes and it just fell out of my head.
Because of the neurotoxins in their grease.
So many inner city neighborhoods are so dog shit. I blame Popeyes. I'm still not going to stop eating it.
I don't disagree.
Duality of man. I know Popeyes makes me retarded. However,
I love Popeyes. Biscuits. Okay, so to add on to that, BR, this is real fucking shit. Okay, there's a Popeyes in Baton Rouge where 3 people have been murdered over chicken.
Is it a really good Popeyes?
It's not even that it's really good. There's a thing called the $5 box there. You heard of it?
I have not.
You pay $5, you get this big ass box of chicken, and it's way too much chicken for the money, and they only do it for like a month, and they sell out like every day at like 1:30 because the line, and this is not even exaggeration, the line will be out the Popeyes, down the road, and into these neighborhoods. Like people pull out of their driveway and get in line to get these boxes. And when you're the last guy to get a box, everyone knows who you are. And there's been at least 3 gunfights over it that I know of. One while I was on duty. So, like, we knew, like, it was a thing that we got in, like, intel briefings. If Popeyes is doing their $5 box, like, stay strapped. I'll be ready.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. So, Nathan's actually 100% correct.
How's it going, lads and ladies? BR here with a quick word from the longest running sponsor of the Art and War podcast, Advanced Warfighting Solutions. AWS have been making tough as hell gear for decades right here in the US in North Carolina. Nathan, myself, and thousands of others run that gear through the ringer and trust our lives to it, whether that's LARPing in the woods or dragging kit through war zones. AWS manufactures many great packs, pouches, plate carriers, and our personal favorite, the SMU Operator Belt. A set and forget gun belt that crushes in build quality, capability, and excellent feedback from its many users. We are tough on our gear here at Art and War, and the SMU takes that treatment in its stride. Though already at a sweet price point, you can knock $10 more off your SMU belt with the code ARTandWar10 at awsin.com. The code and link to the AWS website can be found in the show description. Thanks for listening, now let's get back to the show.
So one thing that I do at most classes, BR, is I'll challenge a student.
Yeah, come in August.
Yeah, you should. Yeah, you're gonna have to
I have an air mattress.
You're gonna have to outsuck me though, is what it is. So what I do is I take a Red Bull and I shotgun it, 12 ounce.
I was wondering where outsucking was gonna go, so I'm glad to
hear.
There's
a lot of ways it can go.
I'm glad to hear it's just a Red Bull.
Oh, it's not just a Red Bull.
It's a spiritual experience. But we did a private class in New Hampshire for a guy that owns a company that does like custom milling and Cerakoting. He does like all kind of custom gun stuff. And a bunch of his homies are cops, and then just his little crew he trains with and everything. And so I went all the way to New Hampshire, Blake and I did. and I kind of pride myself on being able to shotgun things. It's like a skill that I have somehow, despite being a homeschooler that didn't party in college. And anyway, I told one of the students like, yeah, I can out shotgun a Red Bull against any of you, and he was like, bullshit, and I beat him by like literally 3 seconds. I can do it in like a second and a half.
Jesus.
So yeah. And I have a video of it. And everyone's like, "What the fuck?" You know, and I just crush it and walk away. So ever since then, that was one
We're
of our
doing
first
that in
state
August.
classes.
You're going to win.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that now.
I will. It's okay. I've never really had much of a gag reflex, but it's it's a curse, not a gift. You know, it is what it is.
I think the last time I tried to shotgun anything, I accidentally poked the hole in the bottom of a White Claw, tried to shotgun it, and it came out of my nose.
That's about how I would fare. Like
Yeah.
my
I'll show you how.
my college drinking days were not like out partying hardcore. It was me chilling in a pub with a fucking whiskey.
It's like the most
Yeah.
British thing.
It really was. Like it's like, do we have to go out to the club? We're at a pub. Like this is a nice place. Let's just play some pool.
I am with you all day, BR. That's how I like to be.
Let's sit. Let's chill. Let's talk. But anyway, let's pivot away from vices. Something that we chat a little bit about was police training, and that's something I'm kind of interested to hear more from you, seeing as you part of your job has been to be an instructor, you were saying, and I've seen so much fucking awful skills on display from police, like so many body cams.
Certainly.
Like recently, the most recent one I've seen was female officer pulling a gun for some kind of defensive shooting, immediately putting her thumb behind the slide as she's like trying to send rounds. It's like, oh, dude, like how are we making these most basic grip mistakes? And obviously, so much worse is out there.
Yeah. Well,
what have you seen, and why?
I have seen some incredibly bad things. I'll start it off by saying I'll frame it with this: who's doing the training?
The
Is it someone
government.
who's well, there's that. But let's look at it. I like to judge people as individuals, right? Technically, I work for the government, and I think I'm kind of okay at teaching. So, what is it that makes someone an instructor at a department? The answer, in the majority of cases, as a generalization, this is not true of all law enforcement instructors, is that they've been there a while, or they're friends with somebody. It's not typically that they are a good teacher or that they can even do the skill demonstrably that they're teaching. So if your instructors are not being chosen based on their ability to instruct, the students are going to be a direct reflection of that. That's problem number one. Problem number two is the curriculum. What's the purpose behind it? So we start off all of our classes with a learning objective, and I tell the students at the beginning of each day, this is your learning objective for today. So here's a learning objective for the whole course. Here's a learning objective for the day. For example, day one of any of our CQB classes, the objective is that by the end of the day, in a team of 1 through 4, you can safely and effectively, with efficiency and economy of motion, proper target PID, clear 2 conjoined rooms. That's it. That's all we're doing up to that end of that day. It doesn't sound like a lot, but it really is. If your learning objective is to make someone a better fighter, if you're teaching fighting, cool. But what's the actual learning objective in most law enforcement courses? It is that you graduate.
Yeah.
I want you to be done with this, and that's it. And
Check
why
the
is
box.
that? Yeah, so you're assuaging a department's liability because that is the purpose of the training. They're training you so that when you fuck up, they can say, we didn't teach them that. They're not training you because they want you to be good at what you're doing. And that's not out of malice. It's not that they hate you or they don't care or any of those things. It's that it is institutional. The department exists to continue existing, and it won't be able to do that if you mess it up for everyone. So they create systems in which you are told what to do, and you sign a piece of paper saying, yeah, I was told that. They give you a certificate stating what day and time you were told it, and that's it. That's all you get. Yeah. So the reason cops are so often terrible is that the people teaching them don't know better, and the curriculum that are provided or that was developed is done in such a way that it removes department liability. It doesn't make them good. And that's why I'm really wary of when someone's learned their background is, you know, I was a cop or I was in the military. That's it. And that's all they say to justify themselves. How good are you at teaching? What do you actually know? Because just having been something is not enough. And I think that's generally the problem with it. As far as stuff that I've seen that's bad, I'll put it to you like this. I'll give you an example from where I was at. We had a pretty big shootout. A lot of people were involved in it. Several of the people that were involved in it kind of ran the other direction. A couple of them got written up for cowardice and moved around, but one of them got moved into a head of training position. So
one of the guys that ran off.
One of the individuals that ran the other direction.
Fuck.
Tried to make a bunch of excuses later on. Somebody was shot. One dude, he's a fantastic guy. I'm not going to obviously dox anyone on here. Ran out of all his ammo with his pistol and his shotgun in a rolling gunfight with this guy with an AR in the woods. And there were people within hundreds of yards of him that when they heard these shots just turned around and left him to fend for his buddy who was shot in the guts by himself. So you tell me what should happen to that individual. Should they be put in charge of training? I don't know. I would say probably not, but there are reasons why it happened, and I won't get into it, but it's politics. So how do you expect that person to impart any sort of valuable knowledge when their basis of their career and their movement to that position was to get them out of a place where they would have to do and make it so that they only have to teach?
Well, and that is something that's kind of, one of the oldest jokes in the book is like, if you can't do, teach. And
Yep.
Obviously that's not always true. There's fantastic teachers and subject matter experts, but the way you make it sound at the start of that was it's like seniority and perhaps who you know. And is that like kind of a pretty common, like, would you say
I would say that is the most common.
Oh, fuck, yeah. I mean, that tracks.
For example, on SWAT, as a more senior guy with 3 years of teaching with multiple instructor certificates and all this other stuff, I wanted to volunteer to be a firearms instructor. And the reason that I say volunteer is there was a 5 or 6 man cadre that ran the firearms unit at this department that also teaches regionally. So my department was in charge of a regional training academy that trains people from all over the state. And for me, we taught a regional SWAT school, and I taught CQB and breaching at the SWAT school. I wanted to also be a firearms instructor because the unit was so overburdened that they didn't have in the budget to put people full time. And they weren't going to pull me from patrol because patrol's so short-staffed. I was like, fuck it, I'm already doing 3 jobs. I might as well add another one on for no extra pay because I'm passionate about teaching. But the guy who was in charge of the range at the time really didn't like me. He's old and fat and wears a big red shirt and doesn't like anyone who disagrees with him.
I was probably really sharp on training people up.
Yeah. So I put in my application, and the major over training told me, okay, cool, thanks for the application. Go interview with the captain of the range. And when I talked to him, he said, I just don't think you have what it takes to be an instructor here. And that's literally just because he didn't like who I was as a person. Incredible. So that is the determining factor. Now, 6 months later, they bring in a person who's notorious for not doing anything, has never worked the road, has never been in a patrol capacity, has never done any of the things that you would think would need to give you the experience to be able to teach a use of force thing like shooting people. They put this person in an instructor position because he likes this person. So that is where we're at with law enforcement. Not everywhere. I'm not saying it's a rule, but it's very likely that that's what's going on in any department that you see. And that's why cops are coming out of these programs basically shooting like dog shit, is because they're not actually being trained well. And they're being trained flood lore if it's 20 years out of date.
My mind jumps to the mass shooting that happened here in 2020. And this is not a disrespect of the people who died. It's a tragedy all around, and I find it more a failure of the establishment. During the inquiry, it turned out that the woman who defended the RCMP officer who came in contact with the mass shooter.
Oh, you said the shooting that happened here, but Nathan, you're free now.
Yes, no, okay. The shooting that happened in my former state of geographical area. She emptied her pistol at the mass shooter at about within several feet, like at spitting distance. Did not reload, did not grab her carbine, ran away and was shot in the back. And I view that less as a failure of the individual, more as a failure of the system that was supposed to train her to deal with situations like this. And it came out in the inquiry as well. She failed her carbine course. She failed her gunfighting, but she was pushed through anyway.
So put it to you this way, I have seen multiple times, this is the same institution I was talking about before. We had a pre-academy class. So because our department runs the class, they put you through a class on how to take the academy shooting so that none of their people fail in front of everyone else. So super long story short, people would fail that preschool and they get sent back to it 3 or 4 or 5 times. And eventually the department just puts them in the school anyway, and they might make a bare minimum passing score. So in Louisiana, you have to shoot an 80 out of 120, I think. I'm sorry, a 96 out of 120, which is an 80%. That's where I was getting 80 from. So 80% is a passing score. I would put it in perspective, BR, at 25 yards, the silhouette is 15% bigger than a man.
Oh,
So it's huge. And
yeah.
the two ring is probably the size of a C zone. At 25 yards, you only have to put 80% of your shots in that.
With Andre the Giant facing you.
Pretty much. And you have people that can't even barely do that. And they finally do it, and then they don't train for a whole year because that's the in-service
Because
process.
they qualified.
Right. And once they fail that qualification, after class, somebody comes out from the range and does another, an alibi shoot with them, and then suddenly they shot the exact minimum. So how much liability does the department incur by fudging scores? You telling me that liability is a problem, right? Oh, we can't teach you this, we can't teach you that, liability this, liability that. But you're going to put people on the street that are unprepared and put civilians' lives in their hands? Are you fucking kidding me?
Well, and that's been obviously more and more demonstrated, I feel, probably as the staffing issues have really plagued law enforcement across the country. It seems to be kind of a continuing trend of harder and harder to recruit military and law enforcement for a whole bunch of reasons. But now you see people like, the very viral video of the dude, happy little golden retriever runs up to the guy, and next thing you know, he's sending rounds in all sorts of directions in a very very populated little neighborhood. Like, is it also, would you say it's kind of a consequence of this training in terms of like kind of threat assessment and positive target ID and stuff that's leading to a lot of people to shoot when they really shouldn't?
There's that, and it's also who are we recruiting? When I started at that agency, I made $32,000 a year, starting salary.
Yeah.
And I don't know who's really going to do that long term unless they're just dumb,
Yeah.
right? Or they don't have literally any other job possibilities. Kind of like signing up for the military. You got people that just join it because they're like, fuck it, we ball, and they want to take that risk. Which is what I meant by, hey, you're just dumb enough to be a cop. Hello, I am one. I'm just saying. It's not a smart decision by any means. It's altruistic. I want to help. And then you get into it a year later and you're like, this helps no one. 99% of the time. Or they have no option. So who are we recruiting? We're not paying them anything. We're barely training them. What do you expect? That's one problem with it, right? Also, have you seen Band of Brothers or Saving Private Ryan?
Yep.
Both of them have those characters that in them are slightly cowardly, and you see that behavior in them throughout the show or the series.
Yeah.
And then ultimately it comes to a head and gets people killed, right? Or they shoot the wrong person or whatever else. There's not as good of a selection in law enforcement to get those people out than there is in the military, and the military still has problems with it. So how are we expecting anything different when we don't train them? We hire just terrible people for the job anyway. There is no system set in place to ensure that the people who are doing this job are the right ones for it. You basically just have to get lucky and have the right person there at the right time. And I don't find that to be a really good system. I think that we need to revamp and change so much about law enforcement in America, not only who we're hiring, how much we're paying them, and how we're training them, but just what we do with our time.
Yeah.
As cops.
And how long have you been a law enforcement professional?
8 years, as of a few weeks ago.
So you've probably seen a whole lot kind of culturally change. I mean, has there been like any kind of major shift in quality over that time, or has it kind of always been suffering these kind of issues?
I was surprised when I got hired. I just turned 22, and I was surprised at how it was even then. Like
quality wise.
quality of individual wise, yes, sir. And then it's not gotten any better. And now we're hiring people that are 21 and 22. And I look at them and I'm like, that's a kid. So I know people thought that about me, but I could also shoot and fight and run and all those things. But the people that are coming in at that young age with very little life experience, and they're not getting trained and blah, blah, blah. How do you expect a 21-year-old kid who would rather do a TikTok dance on duty and has never been in a fist fight? How do you expect him to actually react with that minimum level of training? I expect him to run away or to shoot the wrong person or whatever else, which means something has to give. We have to change something.
Yeah.
And that's why I don't think defunding the police is the answer. I think radical change in what we are doing in all those processes is what's necessary.
So is there any, like, if you were, say you were given control over like a whole state's way of policing, what would you do with that system?
Well, currently our system is self-preserving. What I mean by that is, let's compare it to a fire department. Do you know what kind of taxes a fire department collects? Zero, right? The fire department doesn't do any enforcement. They don't go out and say, hey, your chimney's not up to code. That'll be $5,000. They don't. It's not. There is no enforcement side that funds fire departments, but everyone loves firemen, right? What do firemen do? They sit secluded in their fire station until they're needed. Right? Yeah. Is that practical for police? Not necessarily. However, the model serves to show a government entity can exist that is highly trained with an extremely dangerous need, right? Firemen are going to run into the burning building and save the kiddo. Cool. They're trained at a very high level. They're provided for by taxpayer dollars. And when they're not fighting fires, they aren't doing anything else other than training or responding to medical calls or whatever. So if law enforcement had a similar model, the only thing I would tweak would be that they do targeted enforcement. So what I mean by that is, picture this. Say you have 100 cops in this entity that you've given me control of, and they all get paid, say, $10. And 80 of them are absolute dog shit, and they don't do anything. That is, $800 now in your budget that you can do anything you want with when you get rid of them. And you spread that $800 over the 20 that are left, and those 20 are split into 4 groups of 5, and they're spread out across the city, and they are given an hour of range time, an hour of PT, and an hour of continuing education every shift. And they have 48-hour rotating shifts. Every guy that exists in law enforcement is what we would call a SWAT guy. SWAT doesn't exist anymore. You're just a bad motherfucker. You have all the training, all the equipment. You can conduct rescues. You can conduct, hostage rescue, rapid response. You can do all these things because the department can now afford to invest in the 20% of people that were hard chargers. They could pay you 3 times what your former salary was. And when they come to hire a new guy, they can say, oh, you don't have this much education. You don't have this much physical fitness. You can't shoot this much. You can't do this. You can't do that. We don't need you. We'll hire somebody with our competitive pay that can do this job and do it well. Because now we're paying 6 figures. We're not paying $32,000 for you to be a shithead and write tickets. The flip side of this is departments are funded by harassment currently. They get a percentage of their budget from from the city. Let's just say it's a city municipality, but much of it is tickets.
And I'm sure civil asset forfeiture is.
Oh boy, I'll get into that in a second.
Okay, cool.
I'll get into that in a second. So a very small local department that I know of in 1 year, a long time ago too. So inflation not being considered, it was probably a lot more at the time, value wise. For now, they wrote $1 million in tickets in a town that was maybe 7,000 people.
Can I ask a real quick question? Is there like a quota on ticketing?
It depends. In Louisiana, it's illegal, but in other states, it absolutely is a thing.
Okay, because I hear different things from law enforcement types all the time. But sorry, continue.
So state to state, every state's different. Every state has different police standards. Every state has a different definition of different things. But every state but Louisiana operates on common law. Louisiana operates on what's called Napoleonic Code, because it was a French colony before. So the way that our laws set up are different. It just is what it is.
Yeah.
So one of the things that's codified in there is like, you will not require a cop to do anything. It's all other than domestic violence arrests. If there is probable cause, there's no shall laws for us.
Okay.
But they're also forbidden from telling you have to write a certain number of tickets, because what that does is generate very easily articulable conflict of interest, right? I must write this many tickets because it funds me. The
Yep.
problem is that that's exactly what happens. Taking it a step further, you think we're winning the war on drugs?
Drugs are winning
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. So what had happened was we allow it to continue, and I can say this firsthand as somebody who's done, when I was on that team, 120 to 140 operations a year, and 90 something percent of them were narcotics raids. So
Yeah.
2 a.m, we're blowing your door hinges off and dumping, multiple flashbangs over the drugs and money. What people don't know is if you're on a DEA task force or your department's working with the DEA, you get to keep a certain percentage, a high percentage of this money.
Yeah.
So you're keeping hundreds of thousands of dollars, and you're just paying for the new night vision, the new Bearcat, whatever. Not saying it's going into someone's pocket, but does it not incentivize the department to allow the behavior to continue so they can continue to tax a shadow market? That's exactly what it is. So departments are benefited right now by allowing drug sales to continue so they can continue to reap those benefits by continuing to harass people. What's the most dangerous thing a cop can do? It's a traffic stop, right? We're coming in contact with people that we never would have come in contact with if it wasn't like, wear your seatbelt, right? Fuck wearing your seatbelt, all right? I should not be pulling someone over, which is an extremely dangerous thing on the interstate, right? And stepping out of my vehicle and walking on the side of the road where people are going 85 miles an hour to tell them to buckle their seatbelt.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Well, yeah,
So
it's an extremely dangerous situation for everyone, and obviously the whole point of it is to potentially build a case if there is a case to be built, or to
yeah,
generate revenue
generate
somehow.
revenue. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if our entire purpose as a department, for the most part, institutionally speaking, I'm not talking about individual cops, I'm talking about the machine itself,
Yeah.
is self-preserving through fund gathering by taxing people, which is what it is.
Yep.
Something's got to give. So imagine if we stop doing that, we cut our budget, we cut these people out that are dead weight, and we only kept people that we could pay well, that could perform well, they could do all these necessary skills. I think people would be more likely to call the police when they needed them and not for bullshit.
Yep.
Because you wouldn't respond to it. For example, I've gotten a call before that a lady's dog, their neighbor's dog, had shit in their yard. And I was like, I'm not going to that. And the supervisor was like, no, you have to. It's a department policy that we go to calls and we deal with them because the sheriff is elected. And if you don't go to the call, that's a voter lost, right?
Good. What a great system.
Yeah. So law enforcement resources are being used to respond and write a report on an animal pooping in another person's yard because it didn't have a leash or whatever else. So that's what we're using our resources on. Well, if we just didn't do that, we said, hey, how about you grow the fuck up and you deal with this yourself? We're not coming out for that. We just told people no. We could reduce our call volume a lot. So if we didn't write bullshit tickets, we didn't keep drug money, we didn't do XYZ, a lot of these problems would go away.
Yeah.
And people's perception of law enforcement that makes it so negative would go away. But we would keep the public service, the response capability, and we would not only keep it but improve it because we would cut out that dead weight. There's an old corporate adage of invest in your 20%. So 80% of your people aren't doing anything, 20% of your people are doing 80% of the work. You've heard that? Well, let's cut that dead weight. Let's invest in that 20%.
Yeah. Switch from enforcers and basically, like revenue
thugs.
generators, state thugs, and turn them into actual peace officers. What they're meant to be, protectors who are to be called upon if needed, not settling disputes that you should absolutely be fucking. A neighbor should be able to talk to a neighbor about a noise complaint or a dog shitting in their yard, rather than bringing someone who, at the minute, like we were talking about earlier, a potentially untrained officer who's ready to pull his gun at, a dog yelping the wrong way. Yeah. And mag dumping, and all of a sudden lowering the reputation of everyone in that department, lowering community trust, and all the fucking mess that comes with that.
Yeah, pulling people over to check your emissions in your vehicle, like it's you don't need that.
Yeah,
I think
that's some real like industrial revolution and its consequences type of shit right there.
It fucking absolutely is. Man,
I love it when the guests say it, not us.
Yeah. I appreciate that.
I can remember being told, like, hey, man, you didn't write any tickets this month. And I'm like, yeah, I didn't see any violations.
Yeah.
And they're like, well,
That should be a reasonable response.
Yeah.
yeah, well, like, you drove all over the place. What do you mean you didn't see any violations? I'm like, I did not see anything that within my officer discretion warranted me taking the risk of pulling someone over.
Yeah.
That is stupid.
Yeah.
It doesn't, they're just going to hate me, right? It's not going to help us at all. And
Yeah.
what am I going to,
You're not generating
ticket revenue? Are you kidding me?
You didn't harass enough civilians. Oh, yeah, great.
Yeah,
great,
I was
great,
like, yeah.
great directive.
I've read the criminal code. I'm not required to. Thanks, boss.
Yeah. I think, like, if I had to point at, like, the biggest and most tangible proof of the failure of just law enforcement as an institution in America and Canada and basically anywhere else, it's like, as a civilian, what do you feel when there's a cop behind you? Like, you drive by police, what is your gut instinct? What, like, you are pulling out of a parking lot and there's a cop behind you for a little while. Don't you feel that fucking anxiety? Don't you feel tension just there for a minute until that cop is no longer behind you? That's not how it should be. And I think, like,
No.
what Jared posited is a way to fix that.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's like
It's
you have dudes that are actually trained to deal with emergencies, not harass you for like you are emitting slightly more CO2 than your state allows.
no. Your windows are way too dark.
Yeah, you've got too
I
much.
can't see the drugs. I can't see the drugs through the windows. How am I going to seize the? I can't seize the cash from my department if you're too dark and private.
Yeah,
That's one thing I refused to do is the window tint stuff, and we get into, like, I have a particular loathing for state police, right? Like, of any state, and it's not the individuals. All right, it's cool. I get it. You like shiny boots and the cool Smokey the Bear hat, whatever. If you're gay, it's fine. I don't like the entire purpose, which most of them is highway patrol. Do you really think stopping someone for going 85 and a 70 is saving lives? Because if you do, you're dumb.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of
and
the
as you're
Autobahn?
Right. Exactly. So the price for speeding should be you caused a problem. Okay, well, now we took your license, right? Because driving is a privilege. I get that. You're on a publicly operated road, and I get that there are parameters. We have to regulate some things. You cause a bad accident, okay, cool. You don't get to do this anymore, right? That I get that kind of thing. But hey, I'm gonna slap your wrist. That'll be $400, and it happens all the time, and it doesn't change any behavior. What does that tell us?
Yeah, it's
not about changing behavior. Yeah, it's not about changing behavior. This is legal for a price. That's it.
Yep.
You can go 85 if you want to pay $400 when we ask. That's it. And then if you don't pay it when they ask, what happens to you? You go to jail at gunpoint.
Yeah.
So, like,
come and take you out of your house.
It's a tax, right? Let's take it to its furthest possible conclusion. So, is that the function of police? Sure. Should it be the function of police? No. And it's going to take people being cops and saying they're not going to do these things, which is a super rare thing, and I get that. It's not really a solution. So for anyone listening, it's like, yeah, I like Jared's idea. That's super cool. Cop's bad, even though I'm a cop. What's the actual solution? Well, it's to put these ideas in the heads of legislators and people that would actually sign this into law, because we have to make the money make sense. If departments exist to fund themselves, they're not going to stop their own funding. So what you do is you incentivize this with lawmakers. You say, hey, let's fund this department with XYZ on the budget if they do XYZ. So how do we make it happen? It's not let's go rally and march at the police station. It is let's talk to our legislatures, let's call our town council, let's do XYZ, or God forbid you actually run for office and try to change something for yourself in your own community. That might be like part of the civil process that you could maybe consider instead of just complaining. So I think that's like the solution. If we want to just bitch the whole podcast, that's maybe the solution is get involved, right?
I mean, the one problem I have with that is, unfortunately, there is a lot of fucking money involved, and we have many powerful entities. I mean, we even see it with like constitutional carry. We have police unions who are allegedly freedom guys, who are very American, like pro-America guys, who will stand in the way. And not saying every single group, but many groups who will stand in the way of constitutional carry, because it removes that barrier of, hey, you have to pay our department to authorize you to carry, or whatever system they might have in their fucked up blue state. And And that goes a lot deeper than just constitutional carry, of course. It goes to all of this money being generated from civil asset forfeiture and all the benefits that come with these many revenue generating schemes. It's like you said earlier, we have to follow the money, and at a certain point, it's like, why would they ever turn the stream off?
Yeah, if the answer is if the local legislature and the senators are not getting part of that money, which they typically are not, it's department budget, then they're going to change it if it gets them reelected, right? So if the money is not getting kicked back to the legislature and the legislature says, ooh, I can get reelected if I do this for the people, then we actually are running into a solution. Now, if the sheriff or whoever is paying the local legislature off to say, oh, well, sorry, I've been lobbied. I'm not going to vote against I'm not going to vote for the bill that says, that you anti-asshole bill that funds them like fire departments. It's probably because they got something out of it, political favors, money, whatever. Because you would be dumb to think that the heads of law enforcement entities are not involved in that kind of thing. For example, in Louisiana, there is no one more powerful than a sheriff. In the Constitution of Louisiana, he is the supreme law enforcement authority. He actually gives permission to the chief of police for him to have a department within his parish. Now, we call counties parishes here, just for anyone listening. So, like the county level law enforcement authority is it. If you're not in with that guy, it's not happening. So I can see that level of potential corruption. I'm not saying every sheriff ever is corrupted. I'm definitely not saying that for anyone that's listening. I also didn't kill myself tomorrow. But what I'm saying is there is the potential for you make this kind of action and the Sheriff's Association or the sheriffs of so-and-so, they lobby against it and say, well, here's how crime will spike if we're not doing proactive patrolling and blah, 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 blah. Even though statistics show that patrolling only reduces crime when the cop's in the neighborhood. So the moment you leave, since you can't be everywhere at once, it goes back up. That brings me back to my caveat to this whole thing of targeted patrolling. That looks like what a lot of departments have moved to even now. They don't do like neighborhood beat patrols because it's so dangerous to get ambushed and stuff. What they do is low vis observation. And when they see criminal indicators, they basically create a surveillance team and then they do takedowns on whoever it is. That to me is a much better community impact than you go bebopping down through the neighborhood 5 times a day, and for that 15 minutes you're driving around, everyone behaves. It's much better to say that those cops are awesome, they don't mess with us, but if you go fuck around, you do something seriously spicy, they're going to come pull you out of your bed in the middle of the night because they have an actual case they've built over the last 2 weeks of surveillance. That to me is a much more effective enforcement method than as soon as he turns the corner, I can do whatever I want.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's not taking out proactive policing. It's saying, let's not harass people. Let's actually go look for real criminals. Instead of having 20 people looking to write tickets, let's have 5 people looking for the actual robbery suspect.
Yeah.
It actually hurt people.
Finding people who are hurting kids as opposed to, American citizens that are choosing to grow and smoke a plant or whatever.
Yeah, so when I was helping, our team was tasked with security or QRF for the FBI's human trafficking task force people in Baton Rouge, and several times a month we would go and assist as the takedown element. And not to get into the details of the operation, but we did a lot of work, made a lot of arrests. And at some point, randomly, the admin said, yeah, human trafficking is not a problem in Baton Rouge. We're not going to help anymore. And it's like number 3 in the nation for human trafficking cases. You can just Google, like Baton Rouge and New Orleans are awful because we're on the Mississippi. They're both big ports. I-10, I-12 pass through them. It's a massive hub right next to Houston, in between the East Coast and the West Coast.
Yeah.
So to say that's not a problem is a bold-faced lie, and to pull us off of the task force when we were a key part of it, again, who does that benefit? Why is that happening? It's certainly not what's best for the people, is it? So there's things like this happening where we didn't stop writing tickets because manpower was low. We didn't stop the drug enforcement because manpower was low, but we stopped human trafficking. And the real answer is we don't get paid overtime, and the FBI wouldn't pay us overtime. The task force didn't have that kind of funding, and it didn't generate revenue like if we were doing a drug raid. So saving the kids doesn't make us any money, so we're not going to do it.
Fucking hell. Ugh.
Imagine, and that's an actual thing that happened to me. It's not like I'm positing like this could be happening somewhere. That is literally how that went down. So it's really frustrating to be a cop and to have the right motivations, and then to see that kind of thing going on. It's like, why am I even fucking bothering?
Yeah.
So you have a lot of good people leave. So what are we left with, right? People that don't want to be there, that don't care, that are underpaid, undertrained, with
Yeah.
the wrong
You get what you
attitude,
pay for.
being run by people who also don't care and just want to stay in their job and keep their pension and make their money. So it's a very rare thing to have a good cop doing the right thing with the right amount of training.
Fuck.
Which is part of why I wanted to make a training company, because we don't, as I said a few times in class with Nathan, like the standard for cops a lot of times is, could you get away with it, right? Like, oh, you shot the guy with the flashlight in his hand. Could you articulate in a court of law that a reasonable person would have thought that was a gun? Typically, yes. And that's why a lot of people are like, well, he shot an unarmed man. What the fuck? Well, the standard of training typically is, would a reasonable person have done it in the same situation? And I get that, and I don't disagree that a reasonable person in the same situation may have done that. Is that the standard, though? The standard should be, hey, here's how you actually PID. Here's an actual weapon light. Here's when to use it. Here's what you need to do before you shoot. But that training isn't that. We still have departments that say weapon lights will get you killed because someone will shoot at your flashlight. So no wonder we're having cases where people shoot the wrong guy, because the cops don't know any better, and they're definitely not being taught not to. So that's another reason why we exist. Not only to train and arm civilians and make them understand the realities of all this terrible shit, but when we have cops come through class, they're being trained to a higher standard than what they get at home. And they often will tell us that this is the best class I have ever been to, hands down. And I'm like, I don't know how that's possible. A little imposter syndrome hits, but that's part of why we exist, because it's so bad everywhere.
Yeah.
Anyway, I know I've just talked for like 45 minutes straight.
No, I like it. I like it.
It's I mean, as my friend Guns and Guillotines would say, that's some heavy dope sniper. But like, like it's serious shit, and it's it's an indictment of kind of where we've come to with kind of what is the standard, what is the level of quality that American citizens are willing to accept. And it sucks that the acceptable level has fallen so low. And I mean, not to shoot us down a downward spiral of doom and gloom, but it's very telling of kind of where the military's at, where law enforcement at, is where the average American's mentality is at, where it's like, yeah, this is fine. And it's like, we have so much capability to do so much better, and we have people like yourself who have the drive to do so much better, but so many are willing to accept just a shitty level of quality in so many things.
That's the thing, though, and that's the Forrest Cooper. You guys need to have him on here too. I know I'm just like rattling.
Yeah,
people,
we
but
went on.
He runs.
I
Did
went
you
on
have
an
him?
episode of his show. Well,
Okay,
I
good.
was on his show, and we ended up using it as an episode.
That's awesome.
Redacted LLC. I really like him. We were talking earlier today, actually.
He's so cool, man. I love him.
Yeah,
and his memes
intelligent.
are just. His memes are primo, because you have to go get like an encyclopedia to figure it out.
Yeah.
That's the good shit.
One of the things he talks about, and I've been on his podcast a few times, is what's the hope? Like, what are we actually doing? Because the doom and gloom thing doesn't work. And
100%.
And I don't believe that we're doomed. I just believe that we need to change.
Yeah.
So to frame that part of the discussion, y'all should go listen to sometime Dr. Paul Whitesell gave a speech at the Indiana State Police Academy in like the 60s or 70s, and it's on YouTube, just the audio. But he quotes Heraclitus, which was a trainer of Greek warriors back in the day. And he says that out of every 100 men that comes through his school, 80 of them are nothing but targets. 10 of them shouldn't even be in the school. So 90% worthless, right? 9 of them are good fighters, and like we need those guys. But only one of them is an actual warrior who could bring anyone back from the battle with him. And we've got to find that guy. And that goes back to my theory, and it's part of what I base my idea on of law enforcement is fuck everybody else. Only 10% of them are really worth being there, and only one of them is actually going to lead anybody. So what do we do to change? Well, we have to find those people. We have to find that 10%, and we have to invest in them. So when we take classes, one of the things that I look for is those special people. And I try to make sure that I'm like, hey, man, go tell your friends, build a group, start a grassroots community. Because I can tell that to some numbnuts. And he's like, I bought your t-shirt. And like, that's all he thinks is cool, right? And that's okay. If you're the numbnuts who bought my t-shirt, come to class. I love you. But what I'm saying is there are people who have leadership and charisma and ability. We have to find those people and build community on them, because anyone who's in the military in a successful unit or in law enforcement knows decentralized leadership, people that give a shit, people that inspire others. That's what we need. And Nathan quoted it earlier again on one of our shirts, but rising tides raise all ships. If we could build people up together and raise the next generation, put them on our shoulders, we have some hope. But if all we do is shit on people and say, well, I'm the only thing that's ever going to be good, and then we die and we didn't leave behind a legacy of anything, but I was at the top of the shit pyramid, then what was even the point? So anybody that was listening, that's what I would leave you with after all the negativity, or at least the observation of poor performance. What do we do to actually make things better? Well, we find the good people and we uplift them and we push them to succeed. And we enable them to create community and make themselves and everyone around them better, because that's the only way we succeed.
100%, and that's what we try and do with this show. It's what, the people we bring on. We only bring people on who are trying to do the same thing, trying to build people up and leave this place better than we found it in whatever they do.
I appreciate that about you guys. I recommend this podcast to everybody.
Oh, thank you, man. It's been
a hoot.
Hell yeah. Well, I don't know. Should we start to head out, gents? It's getting a little bit late on the East Coast.
Holy shit! Yeah, the time actually went by. God, it's only like, my computer says it's 11 p.m. So I think that's still East Coast time.
Yeah, yours is definitely, it's not 11 p.m. out here yet, so yours is not set right, but
it's 9 for me. So yeah, you're definitely not there.
Yeah, no, it's fucking 7 here.
Well, shit.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Wait, so I didn't know you were like Central Time then, right, Jared?
I'm where normal people live, yes. Central. Not either one of you weirdos.
No, I used to be Arizona time. Now I'm Eastern, so I'm all fucked up. I'm the earliest in America. But I don't know. You wanna I'll clean this up a little bit. But are you good for time, or do you want to start heading out?
It's probably about that time for me.
All right, cool. Well, in that case, I guess we'll wrap up with briefly.
Yeah.
Dad advice, Jared.
Dad advice. Oh man.
It's gonna be.
Yeah. So this is something I never expected to do as well, but every time I've ever said it, it's sat well with people, and I don't feel like changing a good thing is necessary. Go outside, touch grass, get sun, work out, eat correctly, drink lots of water, quit watching pornography for the love of God. It's rotting your brain. Find a good woman, treat her better than yourself, love people sacrificially, repent, turn to Christ, and I think your life would look a lot better than it does right now.
Based.
Love it. All right, well, thank you so much for coming on, man.
Yes.
If people, for whatever reason, are not yet following Orion Training Group or Orion Concepts, where can we find you? How can we get involved?
We put stuff all over the place, man. I'm pulling my hair out. I do so much social media. So I got Instagram, Orion_training_group. That's the main place to interface. We also do a Patreon if you want like a lot more detailed content for $5 a month. I do a post a week in there, and it's like 5,000 word essays because I don't have a caption limit. And so that's fun. We have a Telegram. We have a YouTube. I have a Twitter that I basically don't do anything on. But if you want any of that stuff, the easiest way to find us is to go to the Instagram and look at the link tree. Otherwise, if you want like actual training, go to the website, oriontraininggroup.com, and it's open enrollment for American citizens. And if you happen to be a really cool Canadian that I know personally, like Nathan, maybe you can come to class. But
thank you.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
It was a good fucking time, and I can't wait for August. Which
I was happy to have you, bro.
Well, my life isn't as fluid and breezy as yours, my friend. But if I can make it, I'll make it.
I will contribute in any way I can. A place to stay, anything else. I think it could be fun.
Our
yeah?
assholes were fluid and breezy after all that Popeyes.
Oh,
well,
God.
shit.
You literally shit. A lot of it.
Oh, man.
Hell yeah. Well, all right. Those links will be down in the episode description below. But otherwise, once again, thank you so much, Jared. Great talking to you. I'm sure you'll be back.
Yeah. Yep. Next month, with Felix of Red Beer Tactical.
Oh, jeez. Knock on wood, bro. God. I know you've had 3 beers,
Yeah, what the
but... I'm about to be like, Felix, are you okay?
Felix, please. All right, well, we'll leave it there. Thanks for listening, guys, and okay, bye.
Okay, bye.